Call to order. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll have a roll call.
Here.
Here.
Mrs. Towner here.
Ms. Aylis is calling in.
Here. Okay, we'll start with something fun. We'll do some recognitions.
Ms. Towner, do you want to read that, please?
I will. If there's anybody, any students that are here for the recognition, the certificates are out on the table, so after I read your name, if you would like to come down and take your certificate, you may do so. The Illinois Music Educators Association District 1 Senior Festival had 25 RB musicians selected for this distinguished audition opportunity. We would like to say thank you to Miss Aubrey Prince, Vocal Music Director, and congratulations to Senior Band, Abigail Morrissey, Percussion, Senior Chorus, Matthew Agnew, Bass 2, Sophia Arcos, Alto 2, Adam Backus, Bass 1, Ben Bialakis, Tenor 2, Samantha Buosio, Alto 1, Brooke Craig, Alto 1, Katie Culloden, Soprano 1, Catherine Del Angel, Alto 1, Peter Gianettos, Bass 2. And actually, if you guys want to just stay down, find your certificates, you can stay down here, and then we'll give you a round of applause when I'm done reading all the names. Ella Johnson, Alto 1, Aiden Leffel, Bass 2, Sydney Leffel, Tenor 1. Oh, you want to stay down here? I want you to. Busted.
Six feet
shady
apart. 6 feet apart.
Sorry. Yeah, it's probably going to be a long line, but we'll recognize you all. Tess Obachowski, Soprano 1. Jovanis Perdanich, Tenor 2. Haley Rayfield, Alto 1. Robert Reyes, Tenor 2. Cecilia Rojas, Alto 2. Margaret Walsh, Soprano 2. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you all came. Eric Watson, Bass 2. Emma Yaknin, Soprano 2. Senior Vocal Jazz, Molly McCormick, Senior Jazz 2, Alto 1. Senior Orchestra, Noah Briones, Violin. Isabella O'Brien, Viola. Emily Rivoli, Flute. Why don't you guys face the audience? Congratulations to all of our talented musicians, and thank you for coming out.
I'd also like to recognize Aubrey Prince.
I said that.
James Baum, our instrumental director. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for all you're doing.
You can sit down now.
Great to have you all here.
Do we want to say we're doing a business if they want to leave?
All right, so we have the Student Association report.
They're probably all going to leave. Hold on.
Okay. We're going to do the business portion now, so if you want to stay, that's fine. If you want to go, you may leave.
Good job. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
The Student Association's not here?
Yeah, the Student Association.
Don't know if people stay for them?
Hector, is there no student association report tonight? They're not here?
No.
Okay.
Okay. So let's just jump right in here to discussion information items and the COVID transition.
Thank you, Mr. Smithing. Okay, so we had our third week of students on campus. Unfortunately, this week we were unable to transition to 50% due to the high case numbers, both locally and regionally. Since the start of the school year in August, we've had a total of 16 student cases. 4 of those 16 have been since November 1st. And we've had a total of 6 staff cases since August, and 3 of those were since November 1st. We're averaging approximately 150 to 170 students per day. The idea behind implementing this model second quarter was to begin having students and staff get comfortable being back on campus together and conducting as close as normal to a school day as possible. Our students have done a great job following the procedures that were put in place by our safety committee. Several teachers also are doing an excellent job going above and beyond to try to make this experience as good as it can be for students who choose to come on campus, while also maintaining a similar experience for the students who are following remotely. As expected, I think this will continue to evolve as we implement more weeks of having students coming back on campus and students feel comfortable coming back on campus, and as more students choose to come back on campus. Unfortunately, that being said, I do need to touch on the case data. And Marianne, I'd like for you to pull up the slide with the positivity rates, new cases, and some of that information, please. No, the other slide. Okay, can you scroll down a little bit? Back to the other slide. There you go, scroll down, there you go. Right about there. Okay, so as you can see, this is our first, the case data. The school district uses the IDPH school matrix for determination of community spread, which is updated every Friday. I know I receive some emails from parents. I receive a lot of emails from teachers. Why am I waiting till Friday to make the decision? The data is updated on Fridays, and so that's part of our protocols. We will make the announcements for each week, for the upcoming week on Fridays. The IDP school matrix was updated this past Friday, November 6th. This is our first week in orange with substantial data in all 4 categories. So based on the data that was released Friday, the school district made a mitigating decision not to increase enrollment to 50% for the week of November 9th, this week, as was originally planned. This decision aligns with the guidance published by the Cook County Department of Public Health of lowering your student cohorts when there's an increase in cases or substantial data. If the IDPH data report for this Friday, November 13th, is in orange again with substantial data in the other categories, that would warrant an adaptive pause. IDPH defines it, adaptive pause, as a strategy that allows for a movement in between multiple learning levels to prevent disease transmission during the pandemic. So what does an adaptive pause look for RBHS? If the data comes out on Friday, which I am anticipating based on the daily news reports it will, RBHS would have to take an adaptive pause. That would mean we would go to remote learning for students the week of November 16th. The schedule already has us assigned for remote learning the week of November 3rd for the 2 days that we're in session Thanksgiving week. So we would have technically a 2-week pause, or a 7 school day pause, the 5 of next week and the 2 of the week after. Faculty and staff would still report to the building. The schedule will remain the same. After speaking with teachers, it's important for consistency with the students, so our schedule will remain the same, with Monday's designated remote schedule, and Tuesday through Friday would still follow the same schedule with office hours in the afternoon. Special education families will receive notification from the special ed department on what services will be available on campus. Again, this announcement won't be made until Friday afternoon once the IDPH site is updated. What model will we be using after Thanksgiving? You know, at this point in time, what I would recommend is as soon as should the data begin to go in the right direction, we would always start with a week of 25% to get everybody acclimated to being back on campus and following the rules and procedures in place. And then we could try to implement 2 weeks of 50%. But again, all this is dependent on the matrix and the data. So that announcement won't come out till that Friday or probably that Saturday of Thanksgiving week, but depending on what the availability of the administration is, I coordinate that with them. But really, this is as previously discussed, This is a very fluid situation that we need to take serious, and we need to go 1 week at a time. So the announcement on this Friday will address whether or not we are taking an adaptive pause for the week of November 16th. The board had asked Brendan Curtin, our assistant principal of athletics, to attend tonight's meeting, and Brendan was here tonight to give an update on winter sports. I believe we have 4 scheduled or 5 scheduled?
We have 4 sports scheduled.
Okay, so Brendan, if you want to come forward and just give a brief update on
Can we
the,
talk about this Thanksgiving thing real quick? So what you just said is that we're going to, if the data stays the same, we'll make an announcement this Friday as to whether we'll take the pause, and that's 2 weeks. So that goes to after Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving's already scheduled to be a virtual week.
correct, so that'd be 2 weeks of
So
no students on campus. Next week and the 2 days of
So what's the
Thanksgiving.
determining factor to whether we bring 50% of the kids back the week after Thanksgiving or 25%?
I think in order for us to move to 50%, we should have all, if not all, a majority of our data points should be in moderate. And so I think there would need to be at least, if we have 2 full weeks in orange, so if we're in orange again this week and orange again next week, we're going to need a week of no orange before we can start transition. So that's why I would like to have our positivity rate and new case rates, both locally and regionally at least, that needs to be out of the substantial category so that we can start bringing students back on campus. And that's why I would say we'd start with 25. I don't see us going where we're at today with the positivity rates and case rates where we're at today, everything's shifting back to moderate to where we would be able to start right back at 50%.
Because the goal is to get us to 50%, so. Now, say, and then there's only 3 weeks before Christmas break, correct?
Correct.
So if we could go 1 week, 25, we could go 2 weeks at 50. Yeah,
Data
assuming-
permitting.
Data permitting. So what do we do if the data doesn't show it? How do we start the season with 50% in January?
The season,
This is
Or the
second
semester? second
Start the
semester?
second semester, January, 50%.
Well,
What does
first
it
things
take to
first,
do that?
obviously the data would have to be, we would need to be all in moderate. I think that would be the safe way, even if some in transit and minimal transition level. But I would think that it would be good to have at least 1 week of 25% before we go full-blown into 50%. And the only reason for that is just so that there are some kids that change classes second semester, some teachers will be changing second semester. So it's just like we kind of did that soft opening at the beginning of the second quarter. It gives everybody to go through their schedule one time, meet their teachers, get expectations, and then the second week.
That might
we
be the
start.
best time to go 50%, in my opinion. Straight up. I don't
I'd be
cheat
here
that.
100%. I mean,
I know, you-
I've worked every day since this pandemic.
So I'm just thinking,
Well, I think
that's my thought, is I want to start 50%, or what if we don't start the first week of school? What if we hold school off a week?
do a remote learning the first week,
No, we just don't do school,
extend the school year.
extend the school year.
We
But
have
if we
not
push the
planned for
whole
that.
thing back 1 week or 2 weeks, till we could get kids on campus, what does that look like?
I think some schools have talked about doing a remote week, the first week back from winter break, just to have kids somewhat do almost like self-quarantining. My concern with that philosophy is, I think some families that travel or take extended vacations over winter break may see that as another week of vacation and not necessarily quarantine. So my thought of trying to start the semester coming back at 25% the first week and then jumping right into 50% would be, and that's if all the data is aligned, that would be, I think, an aggressive approach. Obviously, if the data permits and that's something that the board wants, I think what we should do before we even discuss that decision more is let's see where we sit at our December board meeting. If we're dealing with 4 weeks or 5 weeks of a plus 10% positivity rate, that will give us an idea if it's even realistic to be thinking 50% come 2 weeks after winter break.
I mean, we already know sports are going to the 26th of June, right? Okay. Well, I don't want to make a decision now, I just want to have
Options. What are our options?
What are our options? What are we, I mean, if we can't go 50% and we have to add this remote thing, I just don't know. So that's just where that's, obviously we've done remote and we're doing remote and I'm not, we're doing it, but we're gonna, possibly be doing it in 2 weeks or next week, right?
We could, as long as that data stays like, if it keeps trending the way it's trending, it's not, I think it's not safe to try to raise population on campus. If anything, we need to take an adaptive pause like the IDPH and the Cook County Department of Public Health recommend.
I mean, we made our I'm not gonna go against the matrix that we developed. I think we should follow that.
So the next month, we should discuss some of those options.
Yes.
And one of those options would be an extended winter break, since we're going to June 26th. I mean, it seems odd that we would have sports for an entire month with students not in the building. Why not take advantage of that and just do almost like a semester, like a college semester break and come back?
So the logic, if
there's
I'm
some-
understanding you correctly, it would just be taking a pause and extending winter break, so what, the numbers can get back to all moderate or all minimal, so that we can start off at 50%?
Yeah, I mean, because as long as we're doing sports all the way up to June 26th, I mean, we have significant number of students probably going to be in sports, so why would we race to end in May to have a month of sports if having an extended winter break, kind of like a college semester break, helps us get back to moderate,
I think that's what one of
and then helps us have a more regular second semester? That might not be a bad option.
Monty was talking about more of a college dynamic.
What was that?
I thought I had an email from
So,
one of the
so what,
teachers.
what one of the teachers was recommending is some of the colleges are giving students off from Thanksgiving till they get back in January. So that they're taking an extended winter break from Thanksgiving through winter break. So we've only been on campus for 3 weeks, so my idea,
So
the
is he saying
way
we should
this
move those
plan.
3 weeks to the end?
Well, the way
That
this
would
was,
work.
the way this was laid out, no, they're doing it remote. All the colleges are doing remote.
I'm just saying.
The way this was planned was we just take this 1 week at a time. So I think right now, we know we're heading towards an adaptive pause, which most likely will happen this Friday, should the data come out as planned. I think we get through our adaptive pause and we see where our numbers are, and we just have to continue to take this week by week. But I understand if in December you want me to explain to you what that would look if we took an extra week at winter break so that we can start off at 50%. My question to you would be, what if those numbers aren't changing after the first week? Then it becomes 4 weeks?
Well, even if we start at 25, I mean, we're going in sports to June 26th. If people graduate in May and then they have to come back to the school for an entire month to finish their senior year of sports, that's odd to me. So I think we should take advantage of June as being in school in June.
Okay. Does the rest of the board feel like that's something you want me to explore for the December meeting? I want to make sure we're getting everybody's opinion.
Well, we're just talking options here,
Correct.
right? What are our options? So, I mean, I think it's good to look at options. I can't tell you right this second, I hadn't thought about this option. So I don't know how I feel about it right this second. I gotta let that sink in a little.
But this is fluid, things change. It changed from-
Absolutely. What was?
We should ask our student reps what they
I'd like
would.
to hear Tom first. I'm kind of going around the table a little bit, and then,
Yeah, I think, options have never hurt anything. I think we should put options on the table. But at the same time, I do think it's extremely important that we take the plan that we laid out and follow it according to the data, wherever that takes us. This is a moment where the numbers are going in the completely wrong direction. It's a sort of a, we're right back to where we were earlier in the year. We don't know where it ends. So I would argue for having a debate about, maybe looking into options. But when I look at the attendance numbers of the last 2 weeks, I mean, the reality is when the community came in front of us and made, passionate pleas both ways, but there were large numbers of people who said, please, let our kids come back to school. The truth is, the data tells us that some of those kids have taken advantage of it, lots of them have not. So I would argue for an approach of steadiness, of making sure, because I've heard multiple feedback points from community members, from teachers, and I think what we need right now more than anything, because we're in the middle of the storm, is that we stick with the plan that we set out. It's very clear. It is what it is. And just so that we don't keep moving the goalpost every time we meet, I think that's very important. So I support the superintendent's recommendation on this. And again, looking at an option has never hurt anything, but I also think we have to tread a little lightly because we're in a bad situation right now, and it's uncomfortable for everyone.
No, I agree. That's why I'm trying to talk 2 months out, right?
Ms. Zalis, would you like to contribute? Are you on mute?
No, not at this time, but thank you.
Okay. Lily?
Okay. Well, first of all, I think that the reason that the attendance numbers are so low right now are because kids don't really see a reason as to going in. Because if you go in, the truth is you are one of probably 3 people max in your class, and that doesn't really let them, hang out with their friends, because school, kids want the social aspect as much as they want the learning. And the teachers are still on the Zoom, so there's not much difference. I find it nice being in school because I think it's more productive, but a lot of kids like school for the social aspect, and 25% is just not giving them that when you could be the only student in a class with your teacher and just be alone with them for a whole period. So I do believe that more kids will attend if we ever get to 50%, because that means that there's going to be more students in the building for them to interact with. But I think that extending the school year into the summer is a very bad idea. No student wants that in reality. Even if their sports season goes into the summer, no student wants the school year extended. I'm very confident in that.
I get it. I was in school at one point. I do understand. But no one wants to go. One more day, then even if I had said it June 20th, they wouldn't want to go to June 21st.
Dr. Freitas, you want to add some things?
I do. Good evening, board members, parents, and students, everybody joining us. Guys, students, you're always welcome to your school. I want you here, the board wants you here, the superintendent, the teachers, paraprofessional, everybody that works at RB wants you here, right? We're allowing up to 25%, where in reality only 12% are coming. I want to see the 25%, so come to your school. For the parents and students, as the superintendent said, guys, this is only week 3 of having up to 25% students back. I'm asking for your continued time and patience as we learn to teach in this global pandemic. Parents and students, I hear you guys. You guys want more days. You guys want more time. You guys want traditional practices. I hear you, and I'm working with my instructional coaches to find out how we can do more. But again, all I ask is for your time and patience. Parents and students, and for some reason you have a disagreement or a conflict with a teacher, guys, talk to them. Email them. Go to the source first. Because what I found out in my experience in education, usually when you talk to that person that you have a disagreement with and you guys keep it there, it usually works out. But of course, guys, I am always willing to help. Guys, we're learning, right? This is kind of a first year for many of our teachers. We're learning how to do the best we can with 35 minutes per period and allow for class practice and asynchronous learning. But guys, let me tell you what I am seeing in my informal observations and walkthroughs. Many of our teachers are differentiating and engaging students through Zoom and Google Meets. The expectation and charge I've given them, and the one that's most appropriate for this pandemic, is to teach through Zoom. However, our teachers are growing in comfort and our teachers are going above and beyond. We have teachers in classrooms that are supporting in-person conversation between themselves and students. It's not all exclusively through Zoom. Remember, we have over 114 certified staff members plus another 30 non-certified staff. We are a pretty big school. Teachers are using the whiteboard and in-person students are using the whiteboard to illustrate problems. I've seen it with my own eyes. Teachers are leading workouts for both students that are in-person and remote learners. You would think it's a regular physical education class. There are teachers that are building relationships, talking to students about their personalized math, talking to students about their family lives, and about their homework practice. Guys, we are engaging in many of the traditional practices we had prior to COVID-19. Now, could we do better? Of course we could do better. In education, we believe in growth, in improving as we teach, in improving as we revamp our lessons. So I know we still have a long way to go, guys, and I know teachers and students, okay, that we need to differentiate, right, for those students that are in person and remote learning. But remember, guys, we also want to make sure that we're all learning at a safe pace so we can all get the content we need and skills to be successful, not only here, but also in college. Guys, weeks ago, we had a PD led by Bridget Woolman and Kevin Davis that allowed us to learn from one another and share best practices of the tools we're using, the digital tools we're using to engage students, and how to best work with both in-person learners and remote learners. Guys, we're going to continue those practices. That's what the teachers have asked for, and I know that's what students and parents deserve. So guys, just give us time, give us patience. We'll get there, okay? We'll get there.
I think what Dr. Freitas is touching on is why it's important as we take this 1 week at a time is anytime I can get back on campus after Thanksgiving for teachers to continue to develop this practice, for more students to try this out, I think that only gives us a better chance of being more successful come second semester. It's not by a lack of effort by the staff or by the administration. I think Dr. Freitas brought up a good point. If parents want to see the go to 2 days a week and 50%, then we need to see more kids coming out for the 25%. We need to see our teachers continuing to work on the lessons they're using to make it interactive. And I think all that's happening. I think this is new for everybody. So I think it's important that we still remember it's 1 week at a time. And also, we still have to, as Mr. Jacobs mentioned, we did lay out a plan on how we were going to bring back students back responsibly. I think it's important that we continue to follow that plan.
Yeah.
And that means going 1 week at a time and just following the data. So,
Well, we need to talk, so next board meeting, we'll definitely talk about how to open second semester, because it's got to look different than it does this week, in my opinion.
and I do think by different, I think we talked a little bit with the staff about the importance of some consistency in using a similar schedule and a similar day for remote, growing how those classroom experiences look and changing some things. I know Dr. Freitas is working with the assistant principal for curriculum instruction, instructional coaches, our instructional tech coordinator. Mr. Dibus also is helping out with this, just trying to come up with resources we can use, tech tools we can use to improve the experience for those students that come on campus while still maintaining a good experience for those students that have to stay remote because of a personal condition or a medical condition, family condition, something like that. So we're continuing to work on that, and I know Dr. Freitas is going to be working directly with the instructional coaches and the assistant principal to continue to evolve that, correct?
Yes.
I just have one question for either of you. Are any of our students having to stay home to help with younger siblings? Because the fact is more and more parents are being called back into the office, and the grade school kids are doing a blended learning. So do we know of any of the students who are not coming in because they have to help with a younger sibling?
I don't know if we got that information through our surveys.
No, I could definitely look into that, but that could be a possibility with a family with multiple kids, sure.
So maybe
For
if
some.
we would want to add that to the questionnaire, because I think more parents are being called back into the office, but the grade school kids are half day.
So let's say that is the case. How does that help you get to what you're asking me to do, getting
Yeah,
to
what is the-
50%?
Well, that would let us know why we're struggling to get to 50%. That would certainly tell us that,
Or currently 25%?
or that would definitely enlighten us that why we're at 25%, because we're not going to leave a second grader all alone at home. I mean, that's a real concern.
I think some of the problems we're not getting is because we're teaching to a Zoom. And there's two
That
kids in
too.
the class, like Lily said, instead of teaching to the kids in the class.
But we-
That too, it'd be good to know.
Let's just take a minute. Brendan, I know I called you up and I'm sorry you're sitting there.
No, he's gonna
I'm glad
talk in a
you're
second.
enjoying this conversation. I know you'll help us through this problem. But let's just take a minute. Let's pretend that we come back in January, or we come back after Thanksgiving, and let's say the data goes all moderate and minimal. We still are in a pandemic. So you're not going to have teachers, you still have to social distance to the greatest extent possible, right? I want to clarify, like when we go 50%, there may be some classrooms where desks are not 6 feet apart. They might be 4 feet apart. But teachers, I can't expect teachers to now go stand shoulder to shoulder with kids. They're still going to want to stay in their teaching area and still social distance, and I'm not asking them to jeopardize their safety while we're still under this pandemic. So even when we say, hey, it's got to look different, it's still going to look different from what I think the board is. It's not going to look like it would on a traditional school year. There is going to still be some video instruction. There's still going to be some asynchronous instruction. There still is going to have to be social distancing. You're not going to be able to come back, if we're still in the pandemic, even though the numbers may go down, you can't come back and do labs and expect kids to be shoulder to shoulder sharing lab equipment, doing a science experience, the next class come in and be using that same equipment, and it's just, we're not there yet. That's not going to happen probably till next year. Now, could more of those teachers, or could those students watch a teacher do an experiment in the class, and the teacher have a webcam on so that those kids are experiencing it and participating through the chat and Zoom, and so the class is a little more directed at the students that are in the classroom while the students at home are still getting a very similar experience? Sure. I think that's like where we're trying to go, and I know teachers are working on that. Like Dr. Freda said, we've been in some classes where some teachers just have the overhead on and they're projecting the Zoom to the overhead, so the kids in class are leading discussions with kids in the class, and the kids on Zoom are doing breakout rooms in the Zoom. I mean, that's, to some reality, that's what we're going to be here until either this thing goes away or until everybody has a vaccine, and even who knows how long
But
that
the
will take.
kids at the college are doing labs, so I'm not content to say that we can't do any labs. Maybe we got to look around and see what other people are doing.
Yeah, I don't think kids in the college though are doing labs every 50 minutes with 5-minute passing periods. I don't think
So
they're
maybe we
sanitizing the
stagger it,
equipment.
or we got to figure it out. But to say that we can't have any, I don't think is acceptable, because there are other schools doing it, so we got to
And
look
that might be
around.
something that we can visit, absolutely, second semester during office hours, or during, if there's an asynchronous day, or during the remote day. That might be something that might be possible, but we're on step A, and we got to get, I understand you want me to get to step C, and I'm trying to tell you, we're working through that. And so it is going to take some time for everybody. Our teachers are doing a good job trying to fill this gap in, and to try new things. And I hear you loud and clear that you want to get it to 50% as soon as possible. And the data permitting, we will work with you to do that. But we have to go 1 week at a time. I think that's important.
And when we get to 50%, I like the idea of streaming the class, teaching to the class. People
Yeah,
at home
it's not necessarily streaming. I don't want to scare people in that. It's not necessarily streaming. It's just using the Zoom in a different way. If you take a college class, sometimes a lot of these master's and doctorate programs now, where you have 10 kids that are able to go to where the cohort site is, and 1 or 2 are, at another part of the state participating in the doctoral program. So they might be participating via Zoom, and instead of each kid being on their individual laptop, or each grad student being on the individual laptop, they might be the teacher has one camera focusing on the group and one microphone focusing on the group, so that the kids that are or the students that are participating remote are still part of that instruction as it's happening, and still part of those discussions as it's happening. But you're right, it's not earbuds and everybody's on their own individual device. So we've talked about some of those examples with our instructional tech people, with Dr. Freitas and our assistant principal for curriculum instruction, Ms. Lindquist, and they're working on bringing some of those tools to the staff, and having some staff that's already doing this help demonstrate that in their departments, so it's a process. I understand.
All right, well, we've got a couple months.
Brendan?
All right, let's talk about sports. Looking no bueno. for
Mary
that.
Ann, do you have a slide for Brendan? Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I'm just going to take a few moments to share with you what the landscape of the winter sports season looks like today. Because we know it's
Today.
fluid and we know that it changes. And as you know, the guidance issued by the IDPH and the Illinois State Board of Education pertains to, but is not limited to, school-based sports, primarily high school and elementary schools. What you see on the screen are the winter sports currently offered by the IHSA. And you'll notice the second column from left has the IDPH risk factor. And you have boys and girls basketball with a higher risk, and then the 5 remaining sports with a lower risk. Again, this was taken from IHSA, so it has boys bowling listed there. We don't currently have a boys bowling team. But where the conflict lies is, the IHSA stating that it's okay for basketball to begin. However, within each risk factor, there are different tiers. There's 4 tiers within each factor, and again, these tiers are utilized by the agencies I listed earlier within the IDPH and the Illinois State Board of Education. So when you look at a high-risk sport like basketball, right now they're on a tier of level 1, which means no contact. If they were to conduct practices as a level 1 high-risk sport, they could practice shooting, defensive positioning, but they can't be within 6 feet of a teammate. They can't have any of that physical contact. So hence the high risk. You have your medium risk sports, which cover more of our spring and summer sports. We're not here to talk about that tonight, but I just want to paint a picture so you got to have an idea of how the risk factors operate. So the medium risk would be soccer, volleyball, water polo. And then you have the lower risk sports that we are set to begin this Monday in competitive cheer, competitive dance, gymnastics, and swimming and diving. So obviously within those, the tiers allow for competition within your COVID zone. For us, it's the suburban Cook County, and or within your conference, which for us would be the Metro Suburban Conference. So that's where things lie right now. I know the IHSA is revisiting the whole landscape of basketball. It seems like an ongoing deal. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the conflict in terms of the IHSA saying we're good to go, we're good to move forward. In speaking with many of the ADs throughout the conference and throughout the state and my personal networks, it doesn't feel like there's many schools that are amping up to play basketball. As a former athlete myself, I would love to see every sport taking off for this winter season, but I just don't know. I think I speak for many ADs saying nothing would surprise me at this point because we've seen so many changes almost on a weekly basis, as Dr. Skinka said earlier, taking it week to week. Because 2 weeks ago, basketball was listed as a medium risk sport, and cheer and dance were listed as high risk sports. So they brought the cheer and dance down to a low risk, and they brought basketball up to a high risk. They did give some input on that, but I think it illustrates how quickly things can change as we move forward. So that's kind of where we're sitting right now for winter sports. We have a winter coaches meeting scheduled for tomorrow, November 16th. Hopefully we're kicking off the 4 low-risk sports, and we're kind of in a holding pattern right now in hopes that the IHSA and the IDPH can align what the expectations are. Again, there's a lot of information out there. Maybe they revisit having basketball to start in mid-December with contests starting in January. Again, it's hopeful right now, but those conversations are out there. I don't know, if the right people are having those conversations at the right table, but they're certainly being thrown out there.
Brendan, today there was an article in the Tribune. Craig Anderson, the director of the IHSA, was quoted that the vote is due tomorrow, but on a general survey, and I know we put down that at this point we're not willing to commit until more becomes clear, especially not with the IDPH and the governor's risk level differentiation, differing from what they originally had as a medium risk. In the article, it says if there's not at least 50% of schools participating, that they would go back to the drawing board. Now, they have a directing board tomorrow, is that correct?
So they have a meeting tomorrow. It hasn't been stated whether this is a review of the data or if they will have an actual vote tomorrow night. I believe they will have an actual vote, but I was in a Zoom meeting with Craig Anderson, and he indicated that he couldn't comment on the time if it was going to be an official board vote at that time, or if it would just be a review of the data. It was also stated that, after that survey had been out for a week, 9% of the schools were looking into participating in basketball at that time. Granted, things may have changed since then. I don't see how at this point, but that's a possibility. But I know that they had hoped to share more information by Thursday, so hopefully they
So I
can
had
shed a little more
the
light.
high school superintendents have a weekly Zoom call from the top throughout the state, high school superintendents on Monday. And that was the sentiment that I got from that conversation was less than 10% of high schools have agreed to participate. If anything, more schools have made a hard decision of not to participate. The biggest thing, so the board's aware, a lot of schools, high schools and school districts, both elementary and high schools, belong to cooperatives for insurance, whether it's liability insurance, health insurance, unemployment insurance, workers' compensation. There's different cooperatives. You have multiple schools. Most of those, the two biggest cooperatives, Skip and Click, has sent a letter to all of their high school districts that basically stated that if they went against the IDPH's risk level and the governor's recommendation, that they would have no liability coverage for any cases or instances that would occur during the basketball season while it was still deemed high risk, and that the governor, if they chose to play. So I think that's one of the things, the increased potential for liability exposure is why a lot of schools have now made the decision to not participate or to back off. Also, that came up in that conversation, there is a lot of discussion that they do think, hopefully, like Brendan mentioned, at some point in time, the IHSA and the governor will be able to get together and come up with some kind of amicable solution, whether that be starting the season later, like Brendan said, or right away at second semester at some point. But I think that's why, as much as some people are looking for a decision on this, I don't think there's a decision to be made. As long as there's this exposure for liability and the uncertainty of where the IDPH, the governor, and the IHSA are all on different places, I don't think it's in the best interest for the board to rush to a decision. I think it's important for us to sit back and see if some of these things get worked out between the powers that be.
Well, some of my frustration, you probably talk about this. So when the Illinois High School Association talked about basketball, they said they had a very successful summer. They had successful camps, low incident of any, outbreaks. And they felt very confident that they could run a successful season. It wasn't until the governor threatened that any schools that went against his standards may face legal ramifications, and he said that was on the radio. He said, well, schools won't go along with then they will face legal ramifications for that. So I have to believe that while I think the Illinois High School Association has done their due diligence and they have really worked through a lot of things, I think we're being held hostage by the state. What happened when our cross country, that we had an issue, they went all season, and then our boys couldn't finish out, just finishing protocol. I mean,
Sure.
that happens.
I can
And now all of
certainly
a sudden it's
identify
different
with
for
your
basketball?
frustrations.
If something happens for basketball,
I think
now
one of
there's
the
no.
concerns is obviously, the timing is everything. I think with the case rates where they're at currently, that does not help the situation. I also think some of the concern was it's an indoor sport to where the fall was rather successful with the only indoor sport being in the pool. I think there's some heightened risk from the Department of Public Health. Again, like Brendan said, 2-3 weeks ago, cheer and dance were at a higher risk than basketball. And now that's gone to low risk, and basketball's gone to high risk. So, I mean, this goes back to my point of, I understand you want to see 50%. I understand people want to see basketball. There really is, I don't, from the state down, I mean, there's people, everything is changing on a regular basis. Brendan, do you have anything else to offer with, in regards to winter athletics? So we're set for the low-risk sports to have students to have experiences to start on Monday, you said?
Correct. Practices would start on Monday.
And we have safety procedures put in place, pods, all the things we used in the fall, small
All our
cohorts.
guidelines, which are reciprocal of the IDPH, are in place, have been shared with the administrative team, and will be shared out with our coaches, and I've had those discussions with the coaches throughout the past week. So we should be good to go. And to your point, Laura, I share in a lot of your frustrations as well, and I think part of the reason why IHSA made that decision was because the contact days, I think, were successful within a lot of schools, and I think they kind of bounced some of that off that. And obviously, that was more conducive for some schools than others, but I think a lot of people were pulling for the IHSA at the time, and now it's a different story. And so, like we said, maybe it's a different set of guidelines and information that we receive next week. So hopefully that's the case.
I think it's the threat from the governor that schools will face legal ramifications.
can't-
I honestly think, because that was what he kept saying over and over last week
Yeah.
on the
I
radio.
think
It was a
the-
definite threat of.
Yes.
and
The
he won't
insurance
protect-
liability is a big threat.
And down the line insurance. Right. So what if 100 kids come out for swimming?
Could you repeat that?
What if 100 kids come out for swimming? Because the only
100 kids
sport.
come out for swimming? Yeah, it should pump numbers up.
Yeah. I
You know,
expect it.
it takes a special kind of athlete to want to spend all that time in the pool. Hopefully, we do see an uptick in our roster numbers, though.
Brendan, will
Yeah.
we still be able to do that safely?
I believe we will. Absolutely. I think we have a great team in place that is very
We have two
diligent in
coaches,
how
we
they
have
go
the
about it.
ability to break up
I know.
practices, break
I know
up.
we saw that in the fall with,
Right.
you know,
Yeah, I
with
thought we'd
golf
see a little
and
more.
tennis and cross country, all these kids that were playing, you know, soccer or
question.
football or other sports were like, they're still athletes, right?
Right. Yes, coaches will be encouraged to exercise the pods, the breakouts of different groups within their program as they move forward. So
Because I don't think swimming's a cut sport, correct?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay. You said you had a question on
I
this?
do. So for cheer, like it was moved down, and was that with some additional rules put in place? Because when I think about cheer, and I think about the part that's the tumbling part and the part that's similar to the dance part, that's when people on the squad seem to like come together. So
Sure.
are we talking about cheer in it, what I think of as like my middle school, junior high cheer experience?
Sure.
Right, where you're just kind of going through the chants and the moves and not doing the lifts and the tosses and, like, is
Right.
that some of the rules that
So
have been
that's
put in place?
that's part of the IHSA guidelines. I won't go through the entire
No,
set of
no, no, no,
guidelines, but
but-
obviously, no stunts, pyramids, things of that nature where there's personal contact, no sharing of equipment. So if they have props or palms or things like that for their performance, they're unable to do that. There's been a lot of discussion and traction towards having those competitions done remotely or virtually. Could be synchronous or asynchronous, but they may not have to leave Bulldog country to compete in a contest.
Sure, I guess I asked the question because I wanted everyone to understand the reason for the switch. It wasn't just like they said, oh, no, we
Right.
think it's this, right? They put a lot of guidelines in place
No
to
question.
make it be a different level now, right?
Which includes 6 feet of distancing throughout your performance. So,
Okay, thank
we'll
you.
see.
Any other questions for Brendan?
All right,
Thank you, Brendan.
Okay, good
thank
evening,
you,
everyone.
Brandon, for coming. I know it's kind of last minute, but
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Okay, guys, have a good night.
We move
FOIA, and then we'll get to visitor statements.
Okay. I think we have one FOIA. Yeah. One FOIA, Smart Procurer, again, I think we filled this out before, just asking for first and last name, position, title, and our response is attached.
Okay, perfect. And I saw where part of it was, look that up on the website.
Correct.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mary Ann. Okay, at this point, we'll do visitor statements, so I'll read my statement, and then we can,
We have
Thank
two people that have requested extended time, Tracy Sloan and Deidre Smith.
okay, perfect. The Board of Education welcomes and encourages the participation of the citizens in the business of the school district. There are 2 points in the meeting where visitor statements are scheduled. Citizens are welcome to raise questions or make comments at either one. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per individual and cannot be combined. Please note the Board of Education will not answer questions or engage in dialogue during visitor comments. If a person would like additional time to address the board, such request should be submitted in writing 48 hours before the meeting to the superintendent. So perfect, we'll start. Do we have a
Tracy
list?
Sloan? Miss Tracy Sloan, I'm sorry.
Either one.
Tracy, you have up to 10 minutes. I'll give you kind of like a little wave when you're getting into your last 30 seconds. If it
Okay.
doesn't take 10 minutes, it's okay as well.
Okay, thank you. Members of the board, thanks for letting me speak today. I am Tracy Sloan, and my husband Jim is here. We have 2 kids at RB. We have McKenna, who's a senior, and TJ, who's a junior. And we live in Riverside. I am an alum of RB. I'm not going to tell you when I graduated. My dad, Bill Vandermark, was also a teacher and the athletic director and head football coach here for 40 years. So I am a lifelong RB fan. And I'm very disappointed in what has transpired related to COVID and in-person learning this fall. And I really felt it was important to come and speak really openly and advocate for my kids and other parents and kids. So what I'd like to do is address the board tonight with concerns specifically regarding the current in-person teaching model and the length and robustness of the daily schedule. So this communication is on behalf of not just myself and Jim, but a group of Riverside and Brookfield parents who have recently come together to discuss these concerns. I wanted to share with you some quotes from RB students that I had a chance to speak to over the last few weeks regarding their in-person learning experience this fall. So I'm gonna read these quotes. My teacher was down the hall teaching into Zoom in another room. We had a sub in my room who was just sitting there, and I should have just stayed at home. Another quote, I'm at a disadvantage going into school to take tests. The kids who stay home can use their notes. I should just stay home. I do not feel the teachers want us there. I do not feel the teachers want to be there. I am one kid sitting in a classroom by myself. I feel like the teachers are trying to make in-person learning the most miserable experience possible so that we do not want to come back. Now, these are quotes describing this in-person teaching model. Do I think that this is reflective of every teacher and every child situation? No. Do I think that there are teachers that are absolutely going above and beyond to try to help kids and that the administration is working hard to try to improve the model? I do. But these quotes alone are something that we need to think about and address. I have heard great quotes too. I've heard from a freshman. The first day I went in for in-person learning, I felt like a real high schooler. A senior, well, it is good to have some in-person structure to my day and to get out of the house and see people. And there's more positive quotes too. I'm not saying that it's all bad, and I am also not saying, and I appreciate that there is an effort to try to improve the current in-person learning model. But what I don't want is for the administration and the teachers and the board to think that students are choosing not to come into school just because they don't want to be here. They're choosing not to come into school partially because of some of the things I just outlined that they quoted, okay? So it's the model that I think is flawed, and it's not our interest level or the kids' interest level necessarily in getting into the school. The in-person model right now is not working. When I first learned that we'd be headed into an in-person model in October, I was thrilled, as were my kids. We all thought it would be a healthy mental change, and many of them needed it. I was not aware, nor was the parent or student community, that the school would take an approach that was essentially teaching into a Zoom meeting, with teachers teaching into a Zoom meeting on their computers with little to no interactions, specialized interaction with the students in the classroom. No one knew that that was what what you guys meant by hybrid. There was a huge surprise in the community and with the students, and that's not what we signed up for. Few students and parents have felt value in that model. It is not engaging, it is not enriching, it is not welcoming, it is not positive, it is not creative, and it is not what these kids deserve. I get it, we're dealing with a difficult situation with COVID, something we've never dealt with before as a community. So what I wondered was, what are other schools doing? And I did some simple research. We checked into some local schools. We checked into the following: Fenwick, St. Ignatius, Montini, York, Hinsdale, Lamont, LT, Nazareth, Morton, Westmont, and St. Lawrence. There's many more we could have checked into. We also checked into local junior high schools: Hauser, Gross, Kamarick, and St. Mary's, and here's what we were able to find. The majority of these high schools and junior highs in our area have been in a hybrid model this fall with some 3 days in person per school week. Of those offering hybrid, the majority are offering full days, 8:30 to 3. Almost all of these schools that are in hybrid have figured out a safe, socially distanced approach to lunch in the classrooms, gym, and cafeteria. Every one of these schools that are in hybrid are teaching to the students in the classroom with a Zoom running in the room for remote learners. They are teaching to the students in the class in an interactive way. I have a son at Hauser, that's what's happening. These schools are working with in-person of somewhere between 250 to 400 students in the school per day, with anywhere from 6 to 20 kids per classroom per day. And when you ask people who are living with this model in these surrounding communities, the students, teachers, and parents of each of these schools are saying to me, they are figuring it out. It is getting better and better as they get the kids in the school and the teachers get comfortable. So my question to everybody here, I know you can't answer it, but if some of these schools can figure it out, if a majority of these schools in our local area can figure it out, why can't we? What do these schools have that we don't? And the devil is in the details, right? So you got to think about that. But we are now behind, as most of these schools have been hybrid for 2 days a week for a majority of this fall, maybe not the whole fall, but they've moved to 2 days a week early enough that they've been able to offer their students enriching after-school opportunities as well as contact days this fall for sports. Our students were not given that full opportunity. We missed out on that, and as we have barely started to try to figure this out, we just keep kicking the can. We are not sitting down and thinking about what an in-person model can look like. Let me be very clear. I am not saying that a fully remote option should be offered, but I am not saying that a full remote option should not be offered for those who do not feel safe coming to school. I am not saying certain teachers who feel they are high risk do not need accommodation. I am not saying we should not meet state or regional guidelines. What I am saying is that what we've put in place here is not really cutting it, and I think we can do better. I spoke to a teacher the other day who was very clear to me that there are many teachers that want to get in the classroom. If they could get the kids in for 2 days, they could come up with a much more creative teaching approach for in-person versus remote kids. The numbers work out better with 2 days in person. That's what a teacher told me, and I know it's working because I've talked to teachers from other communities as well. I think it's time for us to talk further about what we need to do as a team to fix this problem, and soon. So we specifically request that the board, school administration, and teachers research and implement what other schools are successfully doing to teach kids in the classroom in an enriching way, with Zoom for remote learners running in the background. And this is happening, as I said, without special technology in other places. We'd also like the teachers, the school, the administration, and board to look at creative approaches to allow for lunch and to extend the learning day to a full day. And finally, I think we really need to look at moving forward with 2 days in-person learning. It's the best way to start figuring this out and make it enriching. I'll say one more thing. I get it, the COVID uptick in numbers is a problem, right, that we have to deal with. We need to navigate it, I get it. But we also need to plan and start talking now about a richer in-person learning experience for these kids when we do have that opportunity to get them in the classroom. I'm willing to contribute time. I know there are other parents that are willing to contribute time to provide advocacy for the parent and student community. And I know that I'm not alone and that we may need to get the work, may need to work to get the power of the parents behind us. But it's past due, and we respectfully ask for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you very much.
Deidre Smith? Is Deidre here? Hi, Deidre. I'll give you a little wave when you're getting close to your time, okay?
Okay. Dr. Skinkis, Dr. Freitas, and board. I'm Deirdre Smith. I'm a Riverside resident and a proud parent to a senior here at RB. I'm also a proud parent to a sophomore at another school who is actually going to school 50% of the time in person and learning in person. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I ask all of you now just to think back to your high school days and in particular to your senior year. That fall was likely spent at football games, gearing up for homecoming, finishing up college visits, applying to colleges. For most of us, it's a time we remember with fondness, or some fondness at least. As our senior years progressed, we started all of our lasts. Our last athletic game, our last fall player spring musical, our last math club competition. We got every single one of our lasts. Flash forward to today, and we can all agree that last year's seniors had the rug pulled out from under them. They had no senior prom, no full-on graduation ceremony. To put it bluntly, it sucked for them. But guess what? This senior class, they never even got on the rug. And that sucks for them even more. There was no homecoming. Their summer and fall wasn't spent on college visits. In fact, some didn't even take their college entrance exams until 2 weeks ago. These seniors have never worn a prom dress, unlike last year's who at least experienced junior prom. They have never voted for a homecoming court, and they haven't gotten their lasts yet. Many are literally making college choices after visiting schools on campustours.com. Think about that, campustours.com. This class of 2021 has truly had their senior year hijacked, and what is being done for them? I would put to you, not enough, barely anything in fact. Yes, they recently got a sign on their lawn, and that is a very nice first gesture. Thank you for that. But it is not nearly enough. Dr. Freitas, I reached out to you on August 20th in an email about this and got no response. So I came to your coffee talk on October 20th, and we had a nice conversation. We agreed that we needed to look into this further. Surprises were coming, and thank you, that sign was a surprise, and we loved getting it. But I immediately followed up with an email asking you how to mobilize the over 12 parents that I know of seniors, get a committee formed, and plan real legitimate activities. And to date, there's been no follow-up. In fact, there was not even an acknowledgement of that communication. So here we are, it's November 10th, and here I am again. And the question remains, what is being done for our seniors? At minimum, there needs to be monthly activity, recognition, something, anything. We need to do better on this. Don't tell the seniors that we are moving forward together. Actually move forward together with them. You are their leader, and they love and respect you. So lead the RB community in a celebration of our seniors. 25%. That's a number everybody here is clearly comfortable with. Well, the senior class represents 25% of the census at RB. So there must be ways that we can safely celebrate their final year at RB together. They need to be together as a class. And as I look around this gym, I never really saw it, this empty, it's pretty large, and it can certainly handle the senior class in a safe manner. It's time for everybody to think outside of the box, and it is time to think of these seniors, because this senior class of 2021, they deserve better. You have a big group of parents ready to assist and make this a very memorable senior year in a good way, somehow. And yet to date, this hasn't been capitalized on, it hasn't even been acknowledged. We don't just have a request, we have an expectation as parents and as taxpayers that our seniors will not be collateral damage to this pandemic. We will not allow them to be lost or their lasts to be forgotten in the face of all this craziness. So, Dr. Freitas, Dr. Skinkis, and board, it's time for action. What can we do for our seniors? Who will lead this charge? How will efforts get started? And how can communication on this topic improve? I could end by saying pause up for our seniors, but I think it's more appropriate right now in this instance to suggest that we all put our paws down and get to work on a plan for the RB class of 2021. Thank you. And I will just say one more thing. Part of that plan cannot be keeping these seniors in school till June 26th. That's just not gonna happen. Okay, so
No, but thank you. It really opens your eyes to some different ideas.
Thank you.
Others, visitor comments?
Visitor comments? Mr. Baum?
Hi, good evening. I'm James Baum. I'm the music teacher here. I just want to take a moment to publicly say how proud I am of the RB Fine Arts community. Not just the students and teachers here at the school, but the wider fine arts community that resides within our borders here in District 208. The pandemic has been brutal on our artists, dancers, musicians, and actors, and I want everyone listening to know that we are in this together and to keep being the amazing creators you are. Well, the Joffrey Ballet canceled its season. Here at RB, we have an amazing dance teacher who's creating beautiful dances with our dancers who are engaging here. The dancers are engaging here and in many private dance studios within our community. Our visual artists are being taught to see the world through creative eyes by our 3 wonderful visual arts teachers, and you can find works of art being displayed at many of the community art studios. The CSO, Lyric Opera, and Playhouses have canceled their seasons, putting many of our community members out of work. Our music department and theater department are here in the midst of a renaissance of virtual performance activity, including our halftime show, upcoming holiday concert, and the fall play, which is debuting next weekend. This creativity mirrors the professional community, which also continued to find new audiences through streaming and socially distant front yard performances. One of the biggest impacts of all of our students are experiencing right now is the absence of social and emotional development. Well, the fine arts have stepped up to fill that void for our students. Students engaging in fine arts continue to study the world around them and make ineffable observations that challenge both the creator and the consumer to discover more about themselves, their surroundings, and the people of the world. The arts are a wonderful gift, and this pandemic has highlighted how wonderfully necessary they are for humanity. I asked my students why they continue to create music, and here's what some said. I know I'm getting short on time, so I'm going to skip some, but I can email you. This is one, a sophomore student. We do music to communicate with one another, to share life with one another. We do music to find happiness, hope, compassion, love, and so much more in our lives. Music does not just give us the power of expressing feelings or emotions. Music gives us the power to be ourselves. In a world of anger, music is something we can share no matter what. Music allows us to look with a magnifying glass into someone else's world. Music is love, music is togetherness, music is happiness, music is music. I know it's a policy of the board to not respond to visitor comments, but I hope you won't mind replying to this simple ask. For the sake of any creative person watching, in acknowledgement of their effort to make this pandemic just a little more tolerable through their art, please offer your congratulations and encouragement through a hearty round of applause. Thank you.
So Mr. Baum, I will engage. So you're in favor of coming back to school then? Because that was a powerful statement about you're really here for the kids and you want to, and you're coming to school doing it right now. You and your whole group
Well,
is coming here, doing
Right,
it.
we want the kids
you've seen-
here
So-
to make art,
No, no,
for
no,
you
so
to
let's-
teach them
but-
how to make art. And
Yes.
how do you feel about that?
Well, you've seen our field show. Like we have to alter things. Like we can't play in our room. So like that's a weird ask. I don't mind seeing the kids by any means.
So you're
but,
in
like-
favor?
What's that?
So you're in favor of coming back to school?
Of being 50% in person?
Well, I'm going to disappoint you. I'm in favor of full remote because that's where my students can actually participate in rehearsal. When they're in person, they can't participate in rehearsal. And that's
So
that's
they
just
can't-
safety.
But I've seen you on the field
Yeah.
with kids.
Right. Without
Pretty
instruments.
close, too.
Without instruments, we can be on the field.
But is that every high school, so no high school can play?
Some high schools have canceled their entire music, like their entire field show, gone. A lot of high schools did that.
But are there some high schools playing? I mean, I know there are schools that are teaching. I know schools are acting. I don't understand why we are not moving. We're a small school. We were ahead in August, and now we've fallen last. I don't understand what the impasse is here.
Well, I think you're asking me to respond for the whole faculty, and I'm not prepared to do that. I can only talk about the music department. And the music department, we've done the math on our rooms. We know that if playing inside would be not safe.
So you can speak on Channel 2 News for the entire staff, but you can't speak here at the board meeting for the entire staff. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, I spoke out of turn for Channel 2 News.
Yeah, but we
Thank you
all
for
heard
saying
it. And
Yeah.
the
Thank you
last
for saying
thing
that.
anybody wants is their school to be on the 5 o'clock news because their teachers called for some big rally because they don't want kids around.
We need to stay at the
Okay,
visitor
Mona.
comments.
Yeah, I was gonna
James,
say, you have a policy about visitors' comments.
you asked them to respond, James, you opened that door.
I
I'm
didn't
sorry.
You opened up the door,
I
and
asked
here
for
you
applause.
sit.
Okay.
James,
Here you sit.
James,
Thank you,
Thank you
James.
for
Thank
doing what
Thank
you do with the students. They love you, and I appreciate it.
Thank
I
you.
really, really do.
Thank you.
There you go, Mrs. Sloan. There you go. That should be a huge answer to.
Okay, let's stay focused on this. I'm sorry I didn't get your first name.
Okay, I haven't started yet, but thank you so much for having me
I'm
here.
sorry.
That's
Go ahead.
okay. My name is Rebecca Wood. I am an RB alum, and I have 2 children here, a sophomore and a junior. And I'm here on behalf of them because we need better transparency. We need better communication. When you said we are going back to hybrid, the 25% wasn't out there. Bait and switch. These kids were looking forward to a plan that was put forth by you and presented to us. It wasn't color blocked Q2 through 4 on the website, 25%. And you say only 12% are coming to school? Why would they come? R through Z on Friday, 8 to 12:30. I got to get out of bed. This wasn't the right plan, and it was never a plan that we saw. And as a taxpayer, it's not what you had presented to us. So moving forward, what is the plan? What are you going to share with us? What are you going to tell us? The metrics. How are we going to move forward? Is it just based on the phases? Everything seems to be across the board. We have schools less than 3 miles away that are hybrid, and they were doing sports. I have a son at another school, and he's in full days. He goes 8 till 3, and he eats lunch, and we haven't had problems. They have a plan, and we were given this plan at the beginning of the year, and we continue to follow it. So if you please keep me on task. I don't know how much more time I have. You said I'm limited to 3 minutes.
At 1:30, you're okay.
Okay, great. So I am here just requesting for improved communications for parents, students, and staff. We need consistent messaging. I listen to the Zooms, and I have teachers that are upset. I have teachers that can't believe they're teaching this way. I have students, my daughters, they don't want to go to some classes. They came for that first remote day, and the next week they didn't come. I want the students back, but this wasn't part of the plan. So we need consistent messaging, we need expectations, and it needs to be across the board. In closing, we should not be, Dr. Skinkis, on step A. We have known about this since March. Other districts have technology in place, and we have fallen behind. We need to follow a plan, stick to it, and put it out there. And that's all I've got to say. So thank you so
Rebecca.
much for your time.
Thank you.
very much.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Jim Sloan. You heard from my wife a little bit ago. I'm going to have a problem keeping this up because it keeps slipping down.
Fine
So
by
I
me.
pre-apologize if my mask comes down a little bit. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Like my wife said, we have 2 kids here at RB and then two younger kids in grade school. I want to thank Tracy and Dee Smith and Becky Wood for their comments, which I'd like to reiterate. What I would like to address right now is something that my friend Mr. Curtin touched on a little bit ago, and I think he took off, and that is athletics and maximizing the opportunity for RB students. As I understand it, this past fall, RB had several different sports teams play: cross country, golf, tennis, girls swimming, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. And I hope and encourage RB to continue forward with these sports within the pertinent guidelines. There was an opportunity that was missed in October, and that was this concept of, quote, contact days. I don't know all the details about the contact days. I know some of the other school districts surrounding us took advantage of these contact days with football and basketball, and basically they were allowed to I don't know if you want to call it practice, but they were allowed to get together 20 days out of the month, and RB, for whatever reason, decided not to do that. As a parent of 2 RB students, I was disappointed to learn that RB did not go forward with those contact days. I am not here to throw stones or cast aspersions or, redo any previous discussions that were made. The message that I would like to get across is to emphasize that if there is any opportunity to play a sport or to have contact days going forward, I ask that RB take full advantage of it. We have seniors, like what Dee Smith just said, we have seniors here who now have just a few more months to participate in sports. There were a number of student athletes, baseball players, for example, who were scheduled to play this past spring, who got their season taken away from them through the fault of nobody. I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but it's very unfortunate. And for those student athletes, I think it's fair to say that everyone wants to see them get every opportunity to play going forward. Playing sports is voluntary. It's not mandatory. If someone believes that the risk of playing is too great for him or her, he or she does not have to and should not play. But for those who want to play, they should be afforded every opportunity to do so. And if that opportunity is missed, unfortunately, that's gone forever. I would like to ask the school board, the administration, and the teachers and coaches, for whatever plan we have going forward, we're going to either be 25% hybrid, 50% hybrid, 100% remote. I hope it's not 100% remote, but I ask that we figure out as a group for each of those plans exactly what is the plan and how do we maximize the opportunity for student athletes.
Jim,
Thank
I
you for
gotta
your
cut-
time.
Thank you, Jim. I got to cut you off. Thank you.
Thank you very much. More comments? Okay. All right, more visitor comments. We will, at this point, we'll move on to additional discussion items. This might be a point where you guys want to go. At this point, we're meeting, Board of Education members request to add additional items.
At some point, we as a board in August voted to go hybrid. We've had a bait and switch. Parents are now, we're hearing from parents. Parents are hearing the Zoom meetings. They see what's happening with their kids. We're not getting what we voted for. I don't know if we need to bring an attorney. I don't know what we need to do to get what we voted for to move in that. We're not at 25%. We're not following the plan. Like you said, we're supposed to follow the plan because the plan we're following is not what we voted for.
When you say you voted for it, you're talking about in August?
Yes,
Talking about August.
for hybrid, so.
The August plan is different now, right? We presented a whole different plan in September. We did present a survey to parents. Maybe Ms. Wood didn't receive it when she presented that. That's fine. I could resend that out. But there was a specific question in there, like if we can get in-person learning, if we have students come on campus even to participate in the Zoom was one of the survey questions Dr. Freitas filled out. That came back 78-22, 78% of the 800 parents that filled out that survey. I understand the 50% thing. That was the intention, to go from 25 to 50, to continue to grow this and continue to be more like some of our private schools.
I don't think it's the 25%. I think it's the Zoom meetings here. It's the
But the public
non-personal
schools and the
experience
private
here.
schools, what's a little different is the public schools are required to provide a remote option. So,
And I'm not disagreeing, it's
When-
the experience when the kids are here.
right, so
It's as if they're not even here.
I understand.
That can't keep happening.
I understand.
Why does that keep happening? Every month, we keep coming back, and it is continuing to happen, as if we're being bullied by our staff. That we refuse to do this hybrid. We refuse to teach these students. We refuse to be the teachers that are well-paid, well-supported. What do we need to do? I don't understand. This is 4 months. We're not getting in person. A Zoom meeting in the class where the kids can't talk to the teacher, talk to each other, is not in person, and it shouldn't be called in person. I don't know what it is, but it's not in person.
Okay, but I think we got to remember where we were at, like even when we had our meeting with the union, right? This was like trying to reach some middle ground. Because
I
at
think
that
the union
time-
needs to hear these parent comments, because what we heard from the union was none of this. The union told us they were doing stuff. That is certainly not what we're hearing.
I think the parent who spoke earlier, Ms. Sloan, she made clear that all those quotes are not the same, and that there are some teachers that are going above and beyond. And Dr. Freitas talked about some of his informals. And that teachers are doing some things differently, where they are teaching more to the students in person than are in the remote. And we're trying to provide that equal experience. Again, timing is everything. Would it have been easier to work through this in August? Maybe, right?
When we came to them in July, they had the teachers' union at the end of July meeting had zero concerns about learning. They were talking about other things. Then, and Laura, the problem is, there are a ton of them that are doing good things, but the ones that they have chosen to to speak for them, their leadership is toxic. That's the problem.
So
Well,
Hector-
we
so
have
Hector, can
administrators
we
And if
bring-
some of those
that-
other teachers knew
so-
what they were saying to us in closed meetings, they would be shocked.
So
Shocked.
Hector, can we?
I don't
can
think
we
they're
really bring
honest
out
with their
some-
membership about
we've
what,
talked-
how they are representing their membership.
And we've talked about this before, about really, going above and beyond and recognizing the teachers that are going above and beyond. And bringing the teachers that are doing it, they're the ones that are really going, they're thinking out of the box, to our point. How are they doing? Let's recognize that. Let's talk about it. We brought up, teachers in the past, and they talked about how they did foreign language differently and how they did this differently, and it was really informative to us. And I'd really like if we could get, some of the real go-getters out there to come up and say, look, I'm taking this technology to a new level, and this is really how I think we can do the second semester so much better than what we're doing
Yes,
today.
let's highlight our innovators.
Yeah, but
Right.
I don't think we should be tolerating, I think we should be combing the halls, and we shouldn't be tolerating 4 days a week, somebody is just doing the Zooming. It took us 4 years to go with the laptops. For 4 years, we sent teachers to other schools to learn how to use the laptops in the classroom. We shouldn't be 101 this year, we should be experts on this.
Right, but you have to remember, I know, listen, as I stated many times before, I think kids should be in school. My own kids are attending school. I'm an advocate for having kids on campus. However, when we put in this plan second quarter, the goal was just to, let's get kids back on campus, let's get the safety procedures worked out, so that second semester we can try to do more of our hybrid model. We can't forget those discussions. There were some teachers that had concerns with this model. Why are we going to just teach to a Zoom? And some of those same teachers prefer to just do 100% remote. The board and I did not think it was a good idea to do 100% remote, so this is kind of the first phase of getting students on campus. Now,
Right.
I know this is not what you wanted, but I think in Hector's email out to the staff last week, which you received a copy of, 600 kids came on campus, 600 kids. Now, with it, we're moving it in the right direction. I understand it's not the same thing.
And what I would say is we need all of the kids to come every day, because that's the way, they're the power. Lily, you and your group are the power. If you come to school, you tell your teachers, we're here to learn. And not 3 people in the class, but 15 kids show up every day, every period. That's gonna move us in the right direction. To say, oh, I don't wanna get up, well, dial it in then and be like that guy. Dialing it in.
Well, but part of the
Be the
problem-
person coming to school that's saying, we're gonna come because we want it to change. Be part of the change. The students have to, I can sit here and jump up and down, and we can sit, we've been doing pounding this table
Except,
for 5 months.
Wes, part of the problem is, like, that teacher that spoke, my kid thinks he walks on water. Honest to God. And the couple others of the teachers in this school, my kids, that's what we talked about at the dinner table,
got you
right?
going,
This
yeah.
one, that one, this is what he wore today, this is what she said, this is, right? Like, they think these adults in their lives, more than me. You don't know nothing. What do you know about that? My
But I
friend's
think-
this, my teacher's that, right? So then when some of those teachers got on, right before we went to hybrid, got on the computer, and we know this is true because we had parents report it to us, that they were like, I don't know why you're even gonna bother coming, because you might as well just stay in bed, because I'm gonna talk to the Zoom. And that went rampant. These kids, like, you don't talk on the phone anymore like we did when we were kids, right? My kids got group chats everywhere on Snapchat and this, that, and the other, right? And so now everybody heard that. The whole community heard that. Everybody heard that. And then it was like a lead balloon. They don't, and
I think we've gotta fight back.
unfortunately,
We've
you've
gotta fight
got a
back.
few
Us and our
very
kids have
vocal
to fight
teachers
back.
in this school who are speaking for the majority, and that's not how it should be. It's not how it should be. But those negative, like gossip and the negative, that's what permeates, not the positive. And so part of it is turning that around.
Yeah, and if we were doing hybrid, even at 25%, students would be here. We wouldn't be at 12%. Because students would say, I'm going to make my one day because it's a valuable day. I'm interacting with the teacher, I'm interacting with the other students here. But it's not happening, and that's why they're not coming.
I think I made a statement before saying that the teachers weren't listening to the community, and the community's coming to tell us.
Yes, they are.
And I think
Hey,
as the
Hector.
administration walks through, if you got a teacher talking to the Zoom and kids are sitting there, we would never accept that in a non-pandemic year. Why are we accepting that now? Why is that okay to have students in front of us and not engage them? That would never be acceptable, and especially now when we're so isolated. I don't understand. Those teachers should be called out, and there should be reported that we are working with these certain teachers. Like I said, it took us 4 years to bring in the laptops, and we sent these teachers to look at other schools and find out how to integrate technology into their classroom. It shouldn't have been a learning curve. We've been using this now, and we've had resources here, and we've spent money and time to do that so that we would be prepared. I think we failed here. I really think we failed, and I think as a board, it's our job to start to ask, how are we going to move forward? What kind of data can we get back to say, we got parents that are watching the Zoom meeting. And we even got board members who are watching their kids have the Zoom meetings. So we need better.
It's about building relationships with these kids. That's first and foremost.
Yeah.
And then the learning comes with that.
I
Yes,
still,
Russ, if I could just quickly add, in trying to gauge the sentiments of all the stakeholders here, including the board, I think we need to do more of, right? There are many teachers, right, that are interacting with students, that are having students that are remote and in person engaged. So we just need to do more of it, and as time and as we work and as we meet and as we share best practices, we will do more. All I can say is, I know I sound like a broken record, but time and patience, please, let us continue.
I got an idea. What if we take Monday and make it senior day? So the seniors come in every Monday, and then on their regular day. Right?
well, the problem with that, I appreciate the applause, DJ. The problem with that is we still are in a pandemic. So
Well,
you still have to social distance. So if there's a
It's only
senior,
400 seniors, right?
right, but if there's a
25%.
senior English class, Wes, and 22 of them show up, I can't social distance.
Well,
So,
we'll just have to figure that out.
I mean,
No.
Yeah.
We're substituting,
we
zoom them
can't-
from
we
next
can't-
door. We're
we
zooming
can't
them now. What the
sacrifice-
hell?
So if you have a senior English class or you have a senior science class and there's 22 kids, you can't have 22 kids in a classroom, right? So,
Yeah, we take the freshman class that's not here and we switch them, and we half of them that do Zoom, and then half are in the class, and we switch them. I don't know. You can figure it out. You're a smart guy, Hector. You can figure that out.
Yeah. I mean, don't
I mean,
get
I'm
me
not
wrong.
a doctor.
I'm open for everything, but I also want to add. I mean, you guys
Just
know
an
that.
idea. It doesn't
You
have
guys
to
know
work.
that, right? COVID has hit our students, our families, and our staff. And I take pride in sending a letter and saying that teacher and student haven't had in close contact with other people. If we bring too many people in, we may have to quarantine larger numbers of students. Many of these private schools and they've had to quarantine over hundreds of students. Everything's about safety. Safety. I hear you guys, and keep pushing. It's right.
I'm just saying, even on
Yeah.
the 50% model, we're only going to classes 4 days a week. So we got a fifth day to play with.
We've got to be looking at these other schools.
Right,
That's
but
We've
outside
got
the
to be
box.
visiting these other schools.
But, all right, but let's
Listen,
get, because I don't want to be here till midnight.
If we can't figure it
Well,
out, we got to
that's
see what
for-
other people are doing,
We've got
because we
some-
obviously can't figure it out.
all of the public schools that were referenced tonight have a fully remote day in the middle of their plan. Altez's on Wednesdays. A lot of them used it on Wednesday, so they go kids Monday and Tuesday. There's a full remote day on Wednesday for staff break and to catch up on any asynchronous lessons, work lessons, and then they come in Thursday, Friday.
Yeah, but they're still there 4 days a week, so
No, kids are there 2 days.
2 days, but they're still there 2 days all day.
No. LT's is not all day. Hinsdale, I don't know if that one's all day. From the private schools, they're doing all day. But I also know Fenwick last week had to take a break because they had 100 kids on quarantine.
Okay, but they
So
had
I'm
how many
saying
days
that-
in school?
I think we hear you loud and clear. We're the ones that created these plans back in August, and now we're trying to get kids back. We will continue to work with our staff to implement what you guys are looking for and what the community is looking for. That's our responsibility.
And I would, so I just have to say something at this point as well. I greatly appreciate all the comments that were made. Coming to a board meeting and expressing ideas and concerns is helpful. I want to know what, some of these other schools are doing and so forth. I think that's all wonderful. I would caution the entire board to recognize that this is an incredibly small sample size. This has been referred to as well. Some people think it's worthless. Other children and parents have reported that it has changed the attitude of their children. So I would caution us not to get too hot and heavy on pointing fingers, and on that point in particular, we have all been in meetings with the union. The tempers flew high, and that's good. There's nothing wrong with that, but I am personally not in favor of, in a public meeting, to start even singling out individual teachers. I think it's inappropriate. I think our job is to govern this school with the best information, the best intent, and if we start to switch the discussion towards focusing on if they exist or the small group that might exist that is the anti-innovator, I think that's completely backwards. We should not get so upset and point to them and pour gasoline on the fire. We have a real problem that affects everyone, which is this crisis. And I just think this isn't really that helpful, guys. I completely agree that we have to do better. I would even agree that we failed in large parts. And we're here to say, yep, we hear it, and we're gonna take responsibility, and we're asking the community members to hold us responsible. That's how this works. That's what we set up for. But to have this, and now starting this, I just have a very bad feeling about this. This is with 1,600 students, 100+ teachers, I don't know how many thousands of taxpayers. This is not an easy problem, and to now just sort of pound, and I just think that's unhelpful.
But we were talking about this in August, and it's November, and we're no closer. And this is the frustration. And this is a year, it's gonna be a year of lost school for a lot of students. They've not had the same education. Many of us know educators in other schools, and we know what they're doing in other schools. At what point the board, like you said, we have to govern. At a certain point, we as a board have to say, okay, now we need, just like your boss says, hey, you said you'd do that project, it's 4 months, you haven't moved on it, so now let's lay out some milestones, right? Let's lay out the milestones, and now you gotta hit them. And we as a board we thought we were laying out milestones, but apparently we weren't. And now we got to start hitting these milestones because it's going to be a whole year for some kids.
I understand that, but I don't agree with the notion that we're not any closer, as faulty as it may be. But we are closer because there was a process that led us to this point, and we've heard all these different voices. The parents come here, the teachers have strong opinions, the administration weighs in, and there is a reason we're in this position. It is the sum total of all the steps that were taken in the back and forth. Is it great? No, I don't think it's great. But look, it's my opinion. It's worth nothing. But I believe leadership has something to do with speaking up, speaking out, and I appreciate you for doing that, Laura. I think it's great. You're very passionate. Everybody here is. But if we don't get this community to come back together in some form, and that's where I'm saying I don't think we're not any closer. We are, because we keep sort of having this reoccurring thing. So I do expect the parents to acknowledge what the process was. I do expect teachers to comment on some of these things. Where do they agree with that other schools are actually doing things better? I'd love to hear from that. I expect it from them. But I also expect a certain amount of understanding from the parents and taxpayers. And I appreciate the ones that come here and share it with us. But again, I don't want to, I'm sounding like a broken record. I just, in my experience, when you deal with larger groups and complex problems, when you start pointing fingers, it's not getting any better.
We need to set milestones, because that's appropriate for a board, and we need to try and meet them, like any company would do. And I don't think we had clear milestones. Clearly, the expectations are different between what families expected and what we thought we were getting. And then we need to say what kind of data would be reasonable to say the milestones are being met. But we're going to have to start doing that.
There's a lot of discussions that people can refer back to from August, September, October, where we laid out what this would look like and what the goal of second quarter would look like and what the goal of second semester would look like. Now, we're also trying to implement this at the worst time possible as case trend data is going in the wrong direction. Like, we should have been 50% this week and next week, taken a break at Thanksgiving, and been 50% 2 days a week for 3 weeks before winter break. But if you remember in August, when I laid out the hybrid plan, I said to everybody at the time, and this board approved that plan at 7-0, and I know some things occurred between the staff and the administration and the board that changed those plans. But this is the time when I was telling the board we may need to be prepared to go full remote during cold and flu season.
Yeah,
and we're trying to implement something that, right?
And
So of
nobody's
course it's not gonna
opposed to that. Nobody is saying if the numbers are so high, we have to be full. What are people complaining about, Dr. Skinkis? People are complaining about the actual teaching and the interaction between student and teacher, right?
Yes, but I think Tom brings up a great point in that the parents that spoke tonight have some great points. That can we do a better job? Absolutely. How about some of the emails that we've gotten from parents that said, please don't go full remote, give it another week. This is helping my kid get out of bed, or please try to get to 50%. This is actually working. And we had Lily, when she gave her report last week with Michael, that teachers were more interactive. I mean, this is what's going to, none of us have lived through a pandemic since the last one was, I think, like 1918, but I anticipated this was going to happen. I anticipated as soon as we opened the doors and we started to have students on campus, people were going to want more. The board was going to want more. The community wants more. And as they should, they pay all our salaries. I've had this conversation with staff members before. At the same time, this is all new to everybody, right? So, I mean,
You just have board members who see kids and grandkids in our feeder schools and
Right, but some of our feeder schools are going 2 hours a day. A group goes in the morning for 2 hours, and a group goes in the afternoon for 2 hours.
Right, so my grandson with 3 hours a
4.5.
day is getting a richer experience.
We're going
than-
4.5, Laura. Now, it should be 4.5 2 days a week, but the case numbers went the wrong way. And then we had teachers say, is it better for me to see my kid twice a week for an hour at a time and try to jam 5 days into those 2 hours? Or is it better for me to see my kid via Zoom 3 days, in person 1 day, 4 or 5 days a week at 35 minutes a day? I could tell you right now how that broke out. Science preferred more of a block schedule. Math, foreign language wanted to see their kids every day so that they could do repetition. So, I mean, even the staff, I understand the board's frustration, and has there been some disagreements with staff? Yes, there are some staff members that, if you ask today, they wouldn't want to be in person. But there are a lot of staff that are doing a lot of good things and are trying to make this as best as they can. And I think we're all suffering from a little COVID fatigue, Zoom fatigue.
Yeah, but-
And we will continue to work on it. I think
And
we're-
I'm telling you, I'm seeing a whole fifth grade class of kids that actually can come together and meet and talk, and they get together afterwards to go for bike rides, and they see each other in school, and they talk to each other in school, and they're talking with their teacher, and even though it's not the full day, it's still it's a experience very similar to what they had. And that's what our high school kids are not getting that. And that's in this neighborhood, the same taxing body. And that's what really frustrates me the most, that our younger kids can have that. And the high school, which should be, we're supposed to be excellent. We're supposed to be leading and, you know, be a model. And I don't feel like we're doing that.
Well, I think we all just acknowledge that we have some work to do. And, you know, we're gonna work very diligently at doing it better, right? I mean, that's what we talked for an hour before we got to the comments about we're not happy with the way it is. And we want it better. Then I think the administration sat here with a commitment to do second semester differently. And we talked, what does that different look like? Well, we're not really sure, but it's moving forward in progress. It's not perfection, it's progress. And I think though our progress might be not on, you know, everybody's timeline, it is better than it was the third week of August. I'll tell you that. So, thank you, Hector.
I would just
We'll
encourage,
move
I
on.
would encourage the parents in attendance and the parents watching, when we get back from our adaptive pause, when your students have a designated day or eventually 2 days, don't let them give you the runaround. Have them come to school. I think that's a big part. The more students we can get on campus, the more teachers will continue to work and expand
Yeah.
their practices.
If there's
When you
15
got 3
kids
kids
here-
in front of you and 27 on a Zoom, and they're supposed to teach that class, which the governor is requiring, I could see where they're caught between a rock and a hard place. So what I would say is, as much as some kids don't want to come, I would know what my dad would do to me, and when I was growing up, it'd be a kick in the pants and get out the door, you're going to school whether you like it or not. So maybe that's what we need to, maybe some parents need to think about that. And then as those numbers grow, I think the experience will improve, and we'll continue to work on our end. I think you've heard that loud and clear tonight, correct?
Just one last thing.
No, let's make it one last thing. We're gonna be here till midnight.
Oh, I got nothing but time on my hands. No, I just want to say, we want the best for our kids, right? We know that we need to continually strive to get better. So I think for everyone watching, that's one of the optics, or one of the things this board discusses and talks about, right? Like, one of the reasons why we are so passionate is because we all want, right? And I think everyone comes with a different lens, with different biases, with different experiences, and we all want what's best for kids, right? And so I just end with that. That's a good place to end, right? All right, let's move on.
Good, let's move on.
President's report.
I do not have a report. Student advisory report.
Lily, do you have anything for the student advisor's report?
Would you like me to say something?
We want to hear from you.
No,
Okay.
you don't have anything.
And they were saying that to me about that topic.
Okay.
We want to hear from you.
I'd be happy to speak. Okay. I think that everyone who spoke tonight made very, very good points. There's a huge disconnect between the teachers, parents, and the students. The teachers most likely don't want us in the building. It seems that way with some of them. But there are ones making an effort. Although I think something that could be helpful for the in-person kids is if teachers start giving like hard paper copies to the kids in the classroom to do their work instead of on the laptop, because that would kind of shift it away from the computer and take away some screen fatigue. And also, I don't think students should be required to join the Zoom if they're in the classroom. I have to join my Zooms for half of my classes, and the other half, they don't make me sign in. And honestly, that makes more sense since I'm like literally sitting in front of them for attendance. But anyway, the parents want like a very rigorous, academic schedule for the students. And that makes complete sense. But honestly, the students really like the shortened schedule. I mean, they get out at like 12:30 and have the rest of their day to do whatever they want. And since a lot of kids lost motivation over quarantine and just the overall experience in general, and just the hours looking at the screen, I think it's good for them that they get out earlier. And 35 minutes is a very short period of time to learn, but I don't know, I feel like it's working, but the kids definitely like having the shorter schedules, so I definitely don't think the students agree with their parents in that respect. But everyone wants different things, so it's really hard to come up with a solution, because there are families who are completely against going in person because of the rising cases. And then there's families who want to be in person 100% of the time. And it's just really hard to accommodate everyone and make it a good, meaningful learning experience in the classroom when you still have to deal with the Zoom kids. But that's just the situation we're in, and we have to, ride it out until a vaccine comes out. But I really do hope some teachers make a stronger effort to provide a better experience for the kids who do come in person, because those kids are obviously passionate about their learning and want to break from being at home and on the Zooms. That's the whole reason they come in, especially when there's only 25% of the kids. They just want to get away from the laptop. So it would be better if teachers could come up with more creative solutions to that. And if we can all just try to share our solutions, I suppose.
Thank you, Lily. Lily, I got a quick question for you. Tell us what a class looks like where they don't have you sign in. So are you participating with the teacher? Are you following the Zoom
Yeah, well, it's
on the
different.
overhead? How does that class look? So that maybe
Well, in my calc class, I just do my problems in the packet, because I have a hard paper packet in that class, and that's really nice because I don't even have to be on my laptop for that class. So I just do my practice problems in the classroom, and I'm the only one in that class actually, so I can't really talk to any other kids, but it is nice not having to do the work on the screen. And I don't even have to sign in. And then biology, I really like that class because Miss Kaler does like notes on the overhead, and I like taking handwritten notes instead of on my laptop. So I really like doing that because I don't even have to take my laptop out if we're not doing any like interactive virtual stuff. And then what's my other class? Oh, dance. And dance is pretty nice because I get to move around. So
Okay, thank you, Lily.
yeah.
Thank you, Lily.
No problem.
Superintendent's report?
Not much to report on. The Facilities Advisory Council will meet December 1st. Finance Advisory Council is scheduled for November 16th. You'll see the levy for a first read tonight. No real significant changes in our levying process. Personnel Advisory Council, no update. Policy Advisory Council, no update. Purchase or lease of land Advisory Council. So I did meet with the zoo, and we did walk again the facility. We revised the drawing to accommodate some requests from the zoo to try to increase parking for the zoo. It would still accomplish the goal of possibly having a full baseball/softball athletic complex. So we're still working with the zoo and the Forest Preserve to try to reach an amicable solution. Liability Insurance Group, Kristen will speak on this a little tonight. We're close to finalizing an agreement with Liberty Mutual. And Kristen will go through some of those specifics. What I'm probably looking for tonight from the board as present is action to allow us to finalize an agreement with legal counsel and the advisory group. But Kristen can go into more of those details in a few minutes.
Okay. Kristen, you're up.
Thank you, Dr. Skinkis, for continuing to keep the lines of communication open with the Forest Preserve and the zoo. I appreciate
A lot of
that.
lines of communication I'm trying to keep open right now.
All right, well,
Thank
good
you.
evening. Please bear with me, I have a lot of reports tonight. I will try to go through some of them a little quicker. So attached, the first thing I'd like to report out on is the financial information for the month of October. This represents 33% of the fiscal year. So on Board Book page 16 is our monthly summary report. As you can see, the total operating revenue for the month was $1,266,078, with 64% coming from real estate taxes and CPPRT, 13% coming from federal and state reimbursements, and 12% coming from evidence-based funding, which is our state funding. Additionally, the negative revenue was listed due to transferring registration fees for AP testing and yearbook to activity accounts. That's why there's a negative amount there. Also, a side note, I was going to mention this when I talked about the levy, but for real estate taxes this year, just looking at the prior year collection, we're at 90% of what we had budgeted for. Keeping in mind we budgeted less than we normally would. We budgeted at 97% collection rate rather than 99%. But in terms of our budget, we're tracking rather well for property tax. Compared to where we should be in a normal year, we're chasing about $800,000 in terms of property tax from the previous year.
Can you repeat that, Kristen?
So if we were in a normal year, we would be chasing approximately $800,000 in revenue in property tax. If we normally we would budget 99%. This year, we've budgeted less.
So we're collecting what we budgeted, is what you're saying?
We are about $380,000 less than what we had budgeted, but we're doing rather well for what we budgeted, just not as we normally would in a normal year.
So generally speaking, we're collecting less,
Correct.
no matter what we budgeted.
Correct, absolutely.
And so okay, that's not good news then. I know you kind of sold that, but so then.
Well, it's good news that we're making budget, but
Yes.
it's
Right,
bad news
certainly
that-
good
but
news
the
that
bad
we're-
news is
Wish it was
that
more.
We're
that
close to
deficit's
budget.
going to be as big as what we were planning.
As
We were
what?
hoping to be past what we budgeted at this point because we were hoping to
to
get
make
more
up
property
ground
tax
on that
collection.
deficit.
Right?
Sure,
We
there could
budgeted
certainly
for we budgeted for worst case scenario, and you're saying it's looking like we could hit worst case scenario.
In terms of property tax for previous year, yes. The next big property tax collection doesn't come in until March. Hopefully, we'll have some additional money trickle in November and December, but we've received a majority of the money that we would anticipate receiving from the previous year collection.
Awesome.
Moving on, total operating expenditures for the month were $2,400,242, with 76% going towards salary and benefits, 10% towards special education tuition, and 5% towards operations and maintenance for supplies and services. There were a few questions submitted on this page. The first question was in regards to the anticipated loss of state funding in future years due to the Fair Tax Amendment not passing. We really don't know the specifics yet. It's a little too early to tell. At minimum, I would prepare for a decrease in evidence-based funding. Best case scenarios, they would hold us flat, but there are, two camps that are currently out there. One is saying that we will regress to what our initial level was, I believe in fiscal year 2018. And others are saying that even that will be significantly cut.
And
So
even
again,
that would
it's
be,
just-
I'm sorry, repeat that, even that would be what?
There is another camp that's saying even our initial funding that we received in 2018 would be significantly cut. And so it's too early to tell, but definitely something that I'm monitoring and staying on top of. There's also a question submitted about the amount of money spent this month in salaries compared to this month last year. This is due to several reasons. First of all, we have fewer athletic stipends. We have I think 4 seasons that were moved to a different season. Athletic contests, so there are no table workers for girls volleyball or security for football, things of that nature, announcers. And then activities such as like the homecoming dance, we would have security for, fall play, things of that nature. So all of that probably accounts for about $80,000 or so. And then you also have costs due to subs are significantly down. So at this time, comparing this time this year to this time last year, the difference is about $15,000 just for this month. So that, accounts for a majority of it. And then finally, we did have some savings on salaries due to unexpected staff changes at the beginning of the year. We had 2 teachers retire unexpectedly, which was a significant savings, as well as we had a teacher that needed to leave in October as well. So it's kind of a combination of things. There was also a question submitted about the amount of money spent this month in special education tuition compared to last year this month. That's really hard to compare year to year. I certainly would say that our special ed tuition is going to be higher this year. I do anticipate that. However, bills come in at various times for special education. There's not necessarily a rhyme or reason to it. So it's really hard to look month to month. It's better to look quarter to quarter, things of that nature in regards to special education.
Well, it could be, so the timing.
Yes, it's very much a timing issue when it comes to special education tuition bills. Moving on to Board Book page 18, the summary of revenues shows that the district has received 44% of our budgeted revenue for this year. This amount is up 1% from this time last year, but again, as I previously said, keep in mind we were very conservative with our revenues that we budgeted for this year. The summary of expenditures on the next page will show that the district has spent 34% of the budgeted expenditures for the year. This amount is down from this time last year, which was 37%. Again, that's due to the delay in stipends and things of that nature that I've previously discussed. On Board Book page 20 begins the Statement of Revenues and Expenditures report for the month of October. This report lists all of the revenue and expenditures for the month by account. It also compares budget to actual for each account. I believe there was a question submitted on this report on Board Book page 28, and it's in regards to the life safety account for bleachers. The reason that there is a credit in this account is that initially earlier in the year, our life safety projects this year are for the roof and for an HVAC unit in the gymnastics room. And those accounts are off by maybe 1 digit, I believe, and so they were miscoded. And so this month we did the journal entry to adjust them, which is why there's that discrepancy. And then lastly, in this section of my report, the student activity account summary for the month of October is just provided for your information as I do every month. Keep in mind this month, because we had that transfer into the activity account for testing, we will now start to carry a large balance in that activity account through the month of June until we pay the College Board for all of the AP tests. So that is why that account will continue to carry a large balance. The next report that I have this month is staffing and enrollment projections for the 2021-2022 school year. So Marianne, if you could go to Board Book page 37, please. This report as a whole contains several different reports, so please stop me if you have any questions on a particular page before we go to the next page. So on Board Book page 37, this starts by including a report of classes that are under 20 and over the caps for this school year. So the first chart really is looking at the classes that received board approval back in March because they were under 20, and then looking at where they are now in terms of enrollment. So as you can see, of the classes that received board approval, all of them currently remain under 20, and then 2 of them were canceled because they were part of the German sequence. The next chart lists classes that are only taught once a day that were above 20 or at 20 in the spring, but they're under more than 2 under their cap. So as you can see, some classes have enrollment increased since the spring, and then some have had their enrollment decrease since the spring. And then lastly, the final chart shows classes that are taught multiple periods of the day, and this chart shows classes that when we sectioned in the spring, they were more than 2 students over the cap, and we're providing an update on where those classes are now in terms of enrollment. As you can see, only string orchestra is more than 2 students above the established cap, which the established caps we use as guidelines. Board Book page 39, the next page, includes a final staffing summary. So this chart shows the overall staffing from this school year compared to last school year. And if you can look on the left, on the bottom, you'll see that from last school year to this school year, we decreased FTE by 0.6 FTE in terms of what was actually utilized. On the right-hand side of this document, you can see that the class averages Overall continue to decrease, and they remain rather low for core classes and intervention classes. I believe they were around 24 for core classes and 16 students for our intervention classes.
Kristen, is that 0.8 decrease? We're at 105.6?
I was referring to the FTE that was utilized. Last year, we had a 0.2, but we did not utilize
Gotcha.
it.
So it was really 106.2 and we're at 105.6.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The next page in the report lists the feeder enrollment for all grade levels, which we use then to project and predict our enrollment. There was a question submitted on this page about the outplaced students. So the feeder the feeder schools have 18 students currently outplaced, but that includes students that are in 5th through 8th grade. So we only anticipate receiving 5 additional freshmen next year that are currently outplaced. Due to some students either graduating or aging out of the program at the end of this school year, we anticipate the total number of outplaced students staying about the same for next school year. So there shouldn't be much of an increased cost in regards to that aspect. Going to the next page are the enrollment projections for next year. So I'm projecting a total of 1,648 students, which does include our students in our transition program and students that are outplaced. Removing students from that total, it's on the very bottom chart and it's in fine print, would be 1,599 students. This is very similar to our enrollment this year, which you'll see in a second. After removing the students in the transition program and the students that are outplaced, our current enrollment is 1,602 students. So moving on to the last page, which I know is what people are primarily interested in. This report includes the FTE projections for next year. Before I jump into explaining this chart, I do want to add a caveat. Due to COVID, there is a possibility that enrollment could go up or it could go down. That certainly could have an impact on our transfer students. So this year especially, this is a projection and something that we're monitoring, and that certainly will impact what I'm about to talk about with FTE. So if you look on the left side of this column, or this report, you'll see those 2 yellow boxes. The top yellow box outlines what our current required FTE is. So that's school counselors, social workers, instructional coaches, really looking at FTE that we need to provide that may not translate to having 27 students in your classroom in front of you. And then, so the chart below is looking at how that required FTE changes for the following school year. As you can see, there's really not a whole lot of change. Down the middle of the report, starting at the top, you'll see that's outlining currently what our enrollment is, which is 1,602, and then looking at how many students are currently enrolled in 5 classes, 6 classes, or 7 classes, to figure out what our FTE should be for this year. And so as you can see, we are at 105 FTE, and the chart is showing that we needed 104.1 FTE this year. So if everything were to work out exactly as planned, we would be overstaffed. Certainly we have some bad breaks, right? That's why you have a pre-algebra class at 10. And that's where that first initial report comes in, is, not everything can have 25 students in a class just because of the way things happen to fall or happen to be scheduled this year.
Kristen, can I jump in? The reason it says 105 on the right and the chart on the left says budgeted at FTE 105.6. Remember, we had an unexpected retirement in Sherman, and so we did not fill that position, but it was budgeted for. So we had the budget and staffing for 105.6, but it's at 105 due to that unexpected retirement.
Correct. So next we move into the 3 options presented for next year. They're really, as you can see, I'll go over option A in a minute, but as you can see, the difference is looking at what that average class size would be. So option A is looking at taking our enrollment our projected enrollment for next year, which is, 1,599 students, and then looking at what FTE we would need if we had an average class size of 27. And that would translate to the FTE that you can see on your chart there, which having a hard time reading that, but 104.4, I believe.
Correct.
And then option B would be raising that class average a little bit to 27.25. Obviously, when you raise class size, that's going to lower FTE. And then option C would be aiming to have class averages at 27.5. Obviously, if you look at all three options, regardless of which option the board would like to pursue, we will be decreasing FTE next year a little bit. I would suggest aiming at 104 FTE, which is halfway between option A and option B, and then having the flexibility to add that additional 0.4 FTE if that is needed as we're doing the sectioning process. Again, with COVID, I just am a little hesitant to make a firm recommendation just because we don't know how things are going to play out in terms of our enrollment. And so having that flexibility to start and aim for 104, but to be able to go up to 104.4 should that be needed would certainly be my recommendation.
Is 102.9 option C, that's if these property tax collections keep coming in lower than expected and the deficit comes in? I mean, we have a tendency here to budget and come in under what we budget. But hearing tonight that we're still chasing over 300,000 of property taxes, and that was already on a reduced budget of property tax collection. Remember, the staffing enrollment is just a projection, so you get an idea of what we're preparing for, because we're already starting to pick classes for next year. But you're going to approve the levy in December. You start talking about budget in January. Somebody submitted a question in regards to, well, are there classes that we can cut mid-year? We've staffed these classes. Students have signed up for these classes. Staff has been hired for these classes. So, with the exception of the German class, we can't make changes in the middle of the year or collapse classes in the middle of the year. We still have a requirement to pay that teacher and honor their contract, and we still have an honor to those students who are taking those courses, whether it's virtual or in person. So I don't think that's a realistic option. We laid out three options here today. We went through this again earlier this week, so that if budget and the impact of COVID and the impact of the governor possibly cutting school funding because the fair tax didn't pass, all of those items, if those come into play, this just lays out for you kind of like worst case scenario, best case scenario. I would imagine, like Kristen said, it comes somewhere in between A and B, but we have to see how this pandemic plays out. We have to see how the school funding plays out, and we also have to see where property tax collection comes in, because we are 90% of our revenue comes from property tax collection. Am I correct with that? I think it's 90 or it might be 88, but I mean, it is significantly relies significantly upon property tax collection.
So what does this look like if you only have instead of 7 periods, you have 6 periods?
We had talked about that a long time ago. Obviously, that's something you could still, if you took 6 classes, you could still graduate with, for 4 years, you'd have 24 credits, which would still allow you to pursue some additional electives. I would not, is that an option so that you can keep class sizes low and still, but still help achieve some budgetary needs? That is an option. I would not recommend that as something that we should be at the top of our list. I think that's something you look at when you're in dire straits. And then another way to phase that in is maybe you only allow juniors and seniors to take 7 classes. But I don't think we're at that point yet. But yes, if you took 6 classes, that would, it would reduce some staffing. I have not run a model with 6 classes.
What about,
So you could run the model.
Correct, you would just
Yes.
take the 959 that's in the 7 and put it in all 6. So you have 3 through 5, and then we could run that.
So my first thought when I looked at this was that top, the 2021 classes under 20 for board approval that are not anywhere near the enrollment sizes that we would like to run the classes. What about offering those as online classes?
Well,
Is that a possibility?
AP Music Theory is a capstone, AP Chemistry is a capstone, Honors French 4 is a capstone, Honors German obviously is a capstone, AP Spanish is a capstone, so you have kids that have participated in a 4-year class. Have put in 4 years and have kind of, to reach that capstone, we talk about high rigor, right, or being a high rigor school and a competitive school. So I don't know if that's an option necessarily to offer those online. The pre-algebra is an intervention for our students that are coming in below requirement.
That would be the only one that I would say, when I look at this, that would be outside of that,
Yeah, I
right?
think-
Because they're younger students and they need the remediation or the scaffolding necessary, because that's a prerequisite to so many other things. But these other ones, again, like you said, they're capstones, right? They're at the top of the heap, so.
Right, so I don't think we want to have kids work hard and then all of a sudden in their senior year or their last year of a class and they put in 4 years or something and then kind of push them to virtual. What has worked well for us in the past is we've tried to keep class sizes low in our core classes, math, science, and English. Obviously, you heard a lot from science when we were pushing that boundary on lab classes. So what I need, the direction I think that would come up better for the board is not getting into what classes we should run, just what dollar amount or what are you looking to protect or what are you looking to implement. Like I said, at this point, we're still okay financially where I don't think we need to go to the extremes of do we go to 6 classes. But should that be on our radar in a few years? It could be. I mean, the other thing I would say is, are there some things under required FTE that we can maybe modify or adjust? There are some things that will help. We can adjust or move some things around or combine some things. So the purpose of this exercise is just to give the board an idea, as well as this is something that always comes up during discussions with the board and the teachers union. So just an idea of, how we're doing it to be transparent and how this is figured out. I think we're still a little while away from having to make any final decisions, but it's a good idea to lay out for the board. We have some retirements, so our budget picture is intended to improve slightly next year. So I think we, have to kind of really continue to come back to this December, January, February.
Well, and I think with, I'm not suggesting that we go to, a 6-period day, but I want to know what that looks like financially, right?
Okay.
Because down the line, we do need to think about that. That's a trigger, so to speak. That's a trigger that we could fight about, and we're not going to do. But,
Sure.
And I'm not suggesting we do that. And I also suggest that we talk about, at some point, we talk about this, because I don't want this. We go to, we say, okay, it's 104, and then we're in a COVID situation, and we're back to this half day, this and that, and how are we doing some of these classes? And we need to be able to pull these triggers. I mean, a kid takes lifeguarding, for Christ's sake. You can't do lifeguarding virtually. So that class we shouldn't be running next year if we're not in the pool, period. And so I'm just saying there's, becomes a nice meditating class. He seems to enjoy it. So, but we just got to think about what this looks like. And I think the sooner we start talking about what it looks like next year, the better we're going to be prepared for it. But, okay, let's move on.
I think we'll continue to refer back to this. Kristen and I can give you an example of what that model will look like, I think. you're 100% right. As we get through into second semester and start looking at budgeting, and we also see where we are with the pandemic, and see how close we are getting back to normal. I understand, there's some courses that, I think you bring up a good example, like if we're not gonna be in full person and can't have kids, doing those, but, we have to make some teacher commitments by March. And so, that's why we start talking about this in November. So,
Okay. Well,
it's on our radar, and I think we'll continue this conversation with also trying to implement 50% and all the other things we're doing, and we'll get to it.
well, that certainly is, we have to make teacher commitments in March. That was an interesting point after today's discussion, but
Right.
I digress.
Okay.
Okay, keep going. You got more?
I got more, but later, so
Oh,
I'm
boy.
done for
Can hardly
now.
She's done for right now.
I know I had more questions.
Yeah, I think we're in a good place right now.
All right, okay, consent agenda.
I think, did we
No,
skip the
principal's
principal's
report.
report?
Oh, my God, I'm sorry, Hector.
Good evening again, board members. Here's my principal report and how we're moving onward, ever onward, and forward together. Our school motto is coined by one of my assistant principals, Dave Mannon. First of all, I want to wish all the teachers and students that have had COVID a speedy recovery, and may you not have any long-term effects. I've been checking in with some students and teachers, and it's a brutal illness. Picture the common cold or the flu times 10, with the aches, with the fevers, with the lack of oxygen and the breathing. This is something you do not want to get. So please wash your hands, watch your distance, okay, and wear your mask. Parents, I'm going to remind you at every meeting, guys, please check the Raptor system email. It's sent out at 1 in the morning. You don't have to respond to it at 1 in the morning. You can do it as you wake up. You get your coffee 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. If you do not do the Raptor self-certification system, you're going to get a call. You've been getting calls at 7:30, 7:45, 7:50. So parents, please complete the Raptor system. Guys, I don't want to bother you when you're with work, but I need to make sure that that's done before, we're able to welcome your son or daughter here. Guys, the 2019-2020 Illinois Report Card is officially published and available. To find it, you could go on our website under District, then Facts and Goals, and click on School Report Card. You can also visit the Illinois Report Card website at illinoisreportcard.com and enter Riverside Brookfield. Guys, I have some good news. We are improving. Graduation rate improved from 94 to 95%. Graduation is 50% of your designation. So on our way to exemplary, we have to master graduation rate. And that is my goal, to make RB together collaboratively an exemplary school. Teacher attendance. Teachers with fewer than 10 absences has improved from 60% to 87%. It is the first time in 4 years that we are above state average. Very proud of my staff. Chronic absenteeism has been reduced from 15% to 10%. Freshmen on track has improved from 95 to 96%. Student attendance has improved from 95 to 96%. Unfortunately, the SAT data has not been reported on the Illinois Report Card. We did receive our data a day or two ago, and we're actually working through the data as we speak. But I don't want to share anything until we have every student's data, and we're still waiting on our accommodated students, our accommodated learners. We're still waiting for the data. The minute we get that, I'll make sure the board knows, how we did on the SAT. Overall, we improved in every single category. However, our summative designation has not changed since the state kind of froze the opportunity for all schools to have their rating reevaluated due to COVID-19 and its inability to report academic performance on the SAT in a timely manner. But our goal remains to be an exemplary school, and I truly believe we are really on the way. We are almost there. We can make it, I say, in the next year or two. 2 weeks ago, after several formal conversations with staff about the challenges in teaching in this environment, I surveyed the teachers about how they feel about mandating cameras to be turned on during instruction. The results were calling. 64% want students to have the cameras on, 36%, like it as it is, students having the option to have it on or off. What are the implications? So for second semester, I'm highly considering to have students and considering mandating that they have the cameras on with some kind of opt-out form. But I also learned today, thanks to one of my assistant principals, that many schools are not requiring students to have the cameras on for what we've mentioned over and over again. The equity piece, the privacy piece, things going on at home. But again, I know it's important to our staff. As the data showed me, I am considering it, but I'm kind of working through that. Over the past weekend, I sent a survey, a check-in, as I prefer calling them, to students and parents. And in summary, guys, I could read you 100 quotes of all the great things we're doing. I could read you 100 quotes of all the things that we need to improve. But in summary, students and parents are saying over and over again that our staff is highly organized, responsive, caring, and challenging. However, in areas of improvement, they want more time, more days, and more students on campus. Again, things we heard throughout, the evening tonight. But the essential question is, what's appropriate and equitable during this environment? Guys, let's take things slow, as we've said over and over again. We want to welcome some students back, as we are. Unfortunately, we cannot increase, right, due to the rising numbers of COVID-19. But we are going to work on differentiating our practice for students that are in person and students that are home. You've heard from our student board member and parents that there are many teachers that are differentiating. I'm seeing it. They're having the students talk. They're having the students write on the whiteboard. They're having the students work on problems, They're really engaging students in many traditional ways, reading a book, out loud. It's happening. Do we need to do more of it? Yes, and I hear you guys, and we will do more, okay? Again, I just ask for time and patience, please. Virtual in-person learning, how's it going? We are officially starting week 4. We've had about 170 students daily, over 600 students weekly, and it's a sight to see. Many students love being here for the reasons echoed today. They love seeing their friends. There are many teachers that aren't engaging them, but we could get more students if we continue working on differentiating. I hear that, and we will commit to that. Talking with the principal, because I'm always available to parents. I have monthly meetings. I do my meetings on Mondays. And if I've missed an email or two, I want to apologize. I am committed to doing better, okay? But please continue communicating, because I know, that I always make myself available for in-person meetings. I have my monthly talk with the principals. I check in on Mondays. I'm in constant emails. And again, if I need to do better, please let me know, and I will do that. But the next talking with the principal is November 18th from 7 to 8 p.m. via Zoom. I will send that out possibly in the next few days, the link and all that good stuff. I would like to congratulate Bryce Pekurek for for finishing 15th in sectional and qualifying for what would have been the girls' state cross-country meet. So congratulations, Bryce. We're very proud of you. Congratulations to our boys cross-country team for competing at the Shazam Championships 2020 last weekend. This event is kind of known as unofficial state. Not sponsored by the HSA, but it has all the top runners. Congratulations to Paul for finishing 10th, Cooper 23, Peter, Hayden, Jack, Alex, and Zach also had great performances for our boys. So I was actually very excited to see that our boys had an opportunity, to compete at unofficial state, after the whole COVID-19 quarantine kind of ordeal happened. So real proud of the boys and all the coaches for supporting them. Clue, the play will be streamed this Friday, November 13th, and Saturday, November 14th at 7 p.m. It'll be the first time in school history. Thank you, Ms. Johnson and Ms. Stanky. All right, guys, how do you watch it? It ain't free. We got to support our fine arts. You could go to BroadwayOnDemand.com and buy a virtual ticket, okay? I bought one already. Again, BroadwayOnDemand.com.
Can you have Mrs. Nardi send us the link so that we can do that?
We will
'Cause I
get-
definitely
we
would
will get
like
that to you. Yep.
Put it in the Friday update.
Yep,
Okay.
we'll get that to you.
All right,
Again,
thank you.
BroadwayOnDemand.com. The virtual tickets are $5. Come and support. Parents and families, course selection registration meetings for next year's classes are happening now. Counselors have been meeting with sophomores, next they will meet with juniors, and then we'll end up with the freshmen so they can have an opportunity to get to know them a little better. Students, it's important that you keep your appointment. If you miss one appointment, guess what happens? People have to reschedule. People have to change their calendar. Guys, please keep your appointment, okay? That's very important. And thanks to the few good things about COVID, RB has moved to a fully online registration process via Skyward. Our attendance over the last few weeks, has dropped a little bit. We've been in the 94s, but overall, we're still just above 96%. But there has been a small drop over the last few weeks. There will be no final exams for first semester. Teachers will continue with traditional instruction, and they're more than happy to give some kind of culminating assessment, unit exam, whatever they feel is appropriate, for the curriculum coverage and to build the student skills. So again, there will be no final exams as traditionally practiced here at RB. Those will be instructional days. And to end, continue to wear your mask, wash your distance, and wash your hands. And that concludes my principal's report.
Thanks, Hector.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Freitas. And
Okay.
good job on the, when you get to those 90, 95% areas on the school report card, it's hard to make improvements, right? So even a percentage point is huge, so good work.
The board members received a copy of the school report card in the Friday update. I'll have Marianne update your packets and when the packet's released. I think the one thing that Hector wanted to point out is that we worked hard during negotiations to put some things in place with the teachers to improve teacher attendance, and that has occurred.
I saw that, yeah.
Yep.
It's very nice to see. I appreciate it.
Okay, we have to get moving so we can get some votes in.
Consent agenda, action item, approve minutes.
Here we go. The Board of Education Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois takes the following action on the listed consent agenda items. Approves minutes from the meetings held on October 13th and October 27th, 2020, open and closed, as presented in the November 10th, 2020 Board Agenda Packet.
Second.
Second by Tom Jacobs.
All right.
Any discussion? Nope.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Zalis? Are you still there?
Aye. Yes. Ms. Zalis? Yes.
I think there's a delay. Okay, old business action items.
Life safety capital improvements, they'll be coming in. Joel and Kristen will be doing a presentation in December. Liability insurance. First of all, thank you to Ms. Zalis and Mr. Durkin for the time they put in on this advisory council. Mr. Durkin did an excellent job being in the insurance business, going through a lot of documents, pushing back on the providers and vendors, asking questions that Kristen or I probably would not have even thought about asking, and so I do appreciate the work that Bill has done. Kristen's going to go over a summary report for you that basically compares the two options that we're considering. As I stated earlier in the meeting, after Kristen's presentation, I think the best way to handle this is our liability insurance expires in December, and we could ultimately approve this in December if we wanted to, but I think we have vetted this enough to where we're in the final phases of just negotiating some language in the policy, and Mr. Durkin and Ms. Zalis are assisting us with that. So after Kristen's presentation, if the board feels comfortable, maybe a resolution approving us to move forward with the particular vendor that we want to move forward with, and giving me the authority to work with my designees to finalize the policy and an agreement. Kristen, you want to go over the comparison coverage? Is that the best place to start?
Sure, so on board book page 63. But the Superintendent's Sub-Advisory Council, as Dr. Skinkis mentioned, met on November 6th to review the two proposals in detail. Subsequently, I put together a comparison of coverage chart along with highlights of each option that were included in the board packet. But on 63 is where the chart is, and you'll see the first column, ISIC, is what we currently have, and you'll see this year it is rather expensive. The total cost was $211,021. Our out-of-pocket cost was significantly lower because we chose as a cooperative to use some funds to offset that huge increase. So we actually paid this this past calendar year $144,616. So regardless of what option we choose, you'll see that both of them present as a cost savings. And so the first option that we looked at is SKIP, which is a cooperative, similar to the one we're in, but significantly larger. And the cost is from this year. They don't have numbers for next year's coverage yet. So the cost for this year was $124,358. They do anticipate that going up anywhere from 20 to 25%. Is what they had told us. So we would anticipate if we went with SKIP that would be approximately $150,000 for the district. The last option, which myself as well as the sub-advisory council believe is our best option at this point, is to go with Alliant, who presented us several options. And the option in which we chose is Liberty Mutual. And as you can see on the bottom, the total cost for the coverage would be $117,674. That is a firm quote. That's one of the things we have been working on. So that is the actual amount that we would pay for coverage in 2021. Additionally, I think it's important to note that Alliant has some advantages. Initially, Franzik, which is our current law firm that we use, was not an approved counsel. And we were able to negotiate with Liberty Mutual to get them as an approved counsel for school board related issues and employment issues, which would ultimately save the district money if we had to go into any sort of litigation in regards to liability issues. With Alliant and Liberty Mutual, it's a 1-year commitment. If we joined a cooperative, it's a 3-year commitment. And right now with COVID and things being so uncertain and the liability market being so uncertain, I think it makes sense to go with a 1-year commitment and choose Liberty Mutual. Additionally, not being a part of a cooperative means we don't have to contribute some additional money to a loss fund, which is why one of the reasons why Liberty Mutual is significantly cheaper. The other reason, with not choosing a cooperative, we're able to really tailor the insurance to what we need as a district, which ultimately translates into some cost savings as well. As Dr. Skinka said, we're currently in the process of trying to finalize some language for policy exclusions with Liberty Mutual. They've been very responsive. We're just not done with that process yet. So if the board feels comfortable voting tonight, we can certainly do that pending review by the superintendent or designee. If not, the board will need to take action at the December meeting in order to approve going with one of the options presented.
I spoke with Mr. Durkin tonight. Obviously, he had a conflict. He could not attend tonight, but he was comfortable with this recommendation. I spoke with Ms. Zalis this afternoon. She was comfortable with this recommendation. As I stated earlier, both of them have put a lot of time on this. Mr. Durkin has really done a nice job going through each of the individual policies and really pushing back on our vendors with some specific questions. I think the biggest thing that Bill wanted to advocate tonight was the insurance market is tightening up. There's a lot of uncertainty with COVID, the pandemic, and all the liability exposure and things. So you're going to see cost of coverage go up and the amount of coverage cooperatives or firms are offering go down. He felt that it was a responsible decision to go with Alliant for at least a year to provide us that flexibility to see how this shakes out. My recommendation to the board tonight would be if we can get an approved resolution that allows me to finalize an agreement, working with my designees such as the policy or the insurance, liability insurance advisory council, and Ms. Matana and legal counsel, so we can get this moving to make sure that we have all this completed by the end of December.
Read what I wrote.
I think Mary Ann, did you read give a resolution on the table for this?
Oh, you did? Okay, it's there? All right. Thank you.
So is there any questions in regards to the liability insurance?
After we vetted this, pretty good.
All right, Ms. Towner, can you read it?
Okay. The Board of Education Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois approves the superintendent or designee to finalize an agreement with Alliant to select Liberty Mutual for liability insurance effective January 1st, 2021.
Second.
Second, Ms. Hureska?
Yes.
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 Ms. Zalis?
Yes.
Yes. All right, we'll go to the Quest COVID-19.
Next thing is the Quest amendment. We had spoke about this at length. Kristen is finalizing an agreement with Quest. Kristen, you want to provide an update?
Sure. As a reminder, this contract amendment, along with the state form, is in order to participate in the Summer Food Service Program, which is a reimbursement grant where we would be reimbursed for all meals served, and also we would be able to distribute meals to all students, regardless of whether or not they were on free or reduced lunch. So the amendment, the information presented consists of two things. The first change is to modify the MOU that the Board of Education approved in September to change the billing structure to a per meal cost moving forward. Additionally, the second form that is included is a requirement to participate in the grant. It's a state form. All this does is outlines the fixed meal price, and it does include the management fee that was previously agreed upon. But this gets progressively lower and then eliminated as we distribute more meals. As I have previously said, we have been conditionally approved for this grant based upon the other information that we have submitted. This is the last piece that I need to complete the paperwork. Also, under this agreement, it's important to note that we would not pay for an employment or labor costs associated with Quest, so this would be a significant cost savings to the district. So not only are we able to provide free meals to all students that want them, but it's saving the district money as well. So it really is a win-win situation.
Any other questions?
Nope.
We'd like to get this approved tonight as well.
Okay. Resolved that the Board of Education Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois hereby approves the COVID-19 Pandemic Adjusted Food Service MOU with Quest Food Management Services as presented in the November 10th, 2020 Board Agenda Packet.
Second.
Second, Laura Hureska?
Yes.
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 Payment of bills, there were some questions submitted. Kristen, you want to cover those, please?
Yes, there were 4 questions submitted. The first one is on board book page 117. The question was in regards to alert services and what channel combo is for $3,500. This is for the purchase of a new electric stim and ultrasound machine for the stadium. It's a medical device that we use in immediate care and rehab of injuries in our athletes. The existing one stopped working, so we do need to purchase another one. But we were able to accommodate this out of the existing budget. The next question was just below that, which was in regards to CPR manuals and training kits. So we did purchase 390 CPR manuals and only 39 training kits because they come in sets of 10.
Okay.
And then also in talking to Bill Fry today, all students will still be certified in first aid this year and provisionally certified in CPR, and then they have an option next year to follow up with Mr. Fry to solidify that certification in CPR. It's just too difficult to have all of the equipment to certify all students in CPR this year, but we will be able to go back and certify those students who are interested next year. The next question is on board book page 130, I believe, which is in regards to Franzik, which is our law firm that we use. There's a total of $4,260 in expenses this month, and about 40% of that is related to COVID issues. And then lastly, there's a question throughout the bills in regards to special education tuition. And so how this works in the bills is that on the left-hand side is the name of the school, and then throughout the bills, you'll see on the right-hand side, it'll have the account number, and then it'll say special education tuition. We have to, the way the report works is it's sorted in a PDF alphabetically by vendor, and so that's why it's spread throughout the report. But the names of the school are listed, they're just on the left-hand side of the report. And those were all of the questions that were submitted.
Okay, the Board of Education Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois hereby approves the payment of bills as presented in the November 10th, 2020 Board Agenda Packet.
Second.
Second, Tom Jacobs.
Yes.
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 We had to go back into under old business. Laura, I just want to make sure we got all our votes in. I'm not sure if you have to leave tonight, but now you can discuss. I did not receive any questions or comments on the IASB resolutions from any of the board members.
No.
I didn't get any comments over, so did anybody disagree with the Illinois
the
Association of School
recommendations?
Board's recommendations?
I did not. I went through them all, and I do not.
No, I went through them all and I checked here. Can you explain this pre-K teacher license? I don't have particularly any issue with it. There's a licensing.
And what was their recommendation? I don't
Sorry,
recall.
I don't know what the rec-
Yeah,
that was-
we,
that was
we,
all.
you and I could talk about that at
Okay,
another time.
so you'll explain it to me later?
Yeah, I'll explain it to
I
you
got
later.
it.
Okay?
I was a little bad, I was a little circled around there. I was
Okay,
like,
so that does not require any action. It's just.
No.
No.
The last thing we need to cover in open session tonight is the first read of a levy. Kristen, is that 154? Or has that been updated? Board book page.
155 is the action sheet.
Okay, so there is no action on the budget or the levy tonight. This is the first read. The Finance Advisory Council is meeting later this month. Please remember, so what we do, the school district is limited by the tax caps. So historically, what this board has done is we levy at about 4.95 to ensure we account for any new property in the district, any variances that may be unaccounted for. We never will get 4.95. You only usually get what CPI is, and I think, Kristen, what are we anticipating CPI this year to be? 2.3? So at the most, our levy will increase by 2.3% with some loss factor included. I did not receive any questions on the levy. Again, you'll see this again in December where it needs to be formally approved. So please take a minute to review this and submit any questions so that I can review those with the Finance Advisory Council.
Okay.
Lily, did you have any questions on the levy?
No, I'm good. Thank you, though.
All right.
I'll get you out of
Matters
here
for
by
closed.
10, hon.
Personnel, Sarah, lease property pending imminent litigation, collective negotiation, school safety. Another chance for visitor statements. I think we've covered those. Discussion items, any requested? Consideration of future meetings, and then closed session.
Okay. Board of Education Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois. Oh, I'm sorry, I do have an item for future meeting.
Oh, boy.
Can you give us a device damage report?
Yeah.
Chromebook?
Kristen can do that.
Oh, I did receive that. The amount of requests for repairs, looking at the first quarter, is actually down from this time last year.
No way, that's awesome. All right.
Because they're not here walking around dropping it.
Okay.
All right, sorry. The Board of Education Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois enters closed session for the purpose of considering appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, purchase, sale, or lease of real property, probable imminent or pending litigation, collective negotiations, and school safety.
Second.
Second by Tom Jacobs.
Yes.
Okay,
Come on, Deanna, we're almost done.
Yes.
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 we may have lost the connection there.
All right. We're adjourned.